but I don't
Okay.
know that I could go that extra mile with you and say it's because they think women are worse than men or women bad.
Okay, so I kind of want to stress, because this has been the whole conversation. Like, I feel like I'm making fairly good points and fairly clear points, and you are going out of your way to either not understand or to act like I'm
Well,
being vague when I feel like it's being fairly clear. Kind of a follow up to the debate, which I think will be well, the debate that happened last week, or not last week. Was it Thursday? Yeah, last Thursday on the channel. And I'll be blunt, I kind of blame myself for what happened. I was like almost really hoping to just have a genuine conversation with somebody. Just like someone who has the view that like these guys are okay. And I wanted to talk to somebody who thought about that and just like have a one-on-one kind of exchange of ideas. And that definitely wasn't what happened. That became this. It became fairly quickly apparent to me in the debate he was trying to get me to say something or give him some sort of like he seemed focused on some sort of number or something. Yeah, and it just got really frustrating. But anyways, to follow up on what happened with that, I have a little bit of an update because he's posted this under his because he apparently, I don't know if he streamed it or just recorded and posted the debate as well. And underneath the comments, he went ahead and posted this. That was one hell of a landmine. Yeah, I tried setting it up like 3 times, and it took way too long to get there. But we got there in the end. This is just like, I mean, I knew it talking to him. After a little bit of talking to him, it became clear that he's looking for some sort of gotcha or setup. But like, this is just him confessing it. Like, this is just bad faith. Just bold-faced bad faith. Right out there. And he's not even hiding it. So yeah. And like I said, I kind of blame myself because I would like to have a genuine conversation with someone who just watches these channels and actually like somehow thinks that they're okay. I'd like to just have a conversation, not like fight or argue, just compare ideas. And obviously I get the feeling anymore I'm not going to get that. I'm either just going to get idiots, bigots, or people who are just the definition of bad faith. It's going to be one of those. And I find it almost like disappointing and sad that's the way it has to be. But yeah, his hair gel was getting to his brain, probably. That was an impressive amount of hair gel. I will give him that. Hey, everybody. Had to make sure my microphone was on. Discussions always go better with microphone on. I always find it's easier that way. But yes, I do have a discussion going on. Let me go ahead and bring him up. There it is. Ah, there you are.
hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bob. How are you doing?
I'm a little tired. Work has me wiped out, but you know, other than that, I'm good.
Well, good.
So I know you had some questions for me. So yeah,
Yeah,
go
I
for it.
do have some questions for you. First off, but before I start asking questions, I just wanted to say this is really awesome that you're willing to talk to somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with you. I think that's something that seems very rare these days. So I just wanted to give you a compliment. Thank you so much for being willing to do that. That's
Oh
really
yeah.
admirable.
No, I actually I kind of enjoy having conversations, especially if it's a differing point of view. Just hearing
Yeah,
something different can be interesting. So yeah.
yeah, for sure. And then I'd like to give you a couple more compliments if that's all right.
No.
I think you put out like a prolific amount of content. It's really cool. I was looking through a lot of your back catalog, and you just have so much content out there. That's really cool. I caught a couple of the Versus series, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought those were really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, I mean it's not so much putting out a lot as much as just being around. God, I've been doing this for over 9 years now, so
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just saw the back catalog was quite big, quite
Yeah.
extensive. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, thank you.
cool. So I saw that you had me build on your stream as a Chrissy Mayer
Yeah,
defender.
I didn't know
And
how else. Yeah, no, that I just noticed you mentioned her twice on the email, or a couple times. I didn't know
yeah,
those two.
just because you guys were kind of going through her pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
Sorry if I just spoke over you. I think there's a slight delay, so I
Oh,
apologize.
I'm sure there
about
is. Streaming's never perfect.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, you guys had kind of gone over Chrissy's pattern of behavior, so that's why I was asking about that. Um, I don't know. Would you like me to kind of lay out my opinion, and then maybe we could, see where we go from there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I've watched a lot of your guys' content, and I see that you label people as kind of racist or sexist based off of, you keep calling it a pattern of behavior or a pattern of sorry, there's another term that you've thrown in there, like repeated pattern of behavior, I believe.
Well, I mean, yeah.
And I'm just not sure if that standard has a lot of utility, because I feel you could probably label that pattern, really put that on anyone. I could be wrong, though. So I'd love to kind of hear how you guys kind of flesh out that pattern, is why I wanted to have a conversation with you. It didn't work so well through chat.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure. I guess I'm not sure what your. I guess I'd have to know exactly what your issues are, because, like, I guess the easiest way to explain it would simply be, like, just a person frequently, like, maybe even unconsciously, just doing behaviors. So, like, let's say, a person, let's say you're hiring somebody, and you have two resumes that are identical. And then you're looking at the resume, and you're like, I don't like the name Tyrone. I think I'll go with the other guy.
Okay.
Stuff like that. Where
so
it's not.
I
Like
am familiar with
racist,
the resume studies.
Yeah.
And those do seem to be, there seems to be differences there. There could be other factors on that. Since you guys hadn't used those as kind of like your pattern of behavior, I was kind of hoping we could stick more with like the Chrissy Mayer
so
thing.
you want to stick more with
Well, just because I'm familiar with that. It was not this time's Fandom Initiative stream, but last week's, I believe. So I kind of saw the case that you laid out against Chrissy Mayer. So if you do want to talk about the resume studies, I would love to talk to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's been like 3 or 4 additional ones after that kind of show that there's additional factors that kind of went into those, that like the names chosen, for example, could really change the way that people perceive them. So if you do want to have a conversation about that, I would totally want to prepare just a little bit more. Okay. But I am, a little bit more prepared to kind of go over how you guys labeled Chrissy Mayer as her pattern of behavior. So, for instance, she's a comedian,
mm-hmm.
and part of your pattern of behavior was 4 kind of edgy jokes that they could be considered racist. One of them was Eric just mentioned a Holocaust joke, but like you guys didn't show it, so I don't know if that one is racist or if it's just like a joke about the Holocaust. I'm not saying every Holocaust joke is great or anything like that, but I've definitely laughed at a Holocaust joke. Like, it kind of depends, what the joke is. So,
well, I mean, context is the main thing that always matters. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And, we kind of don't have that in that. It was just Eric's example is she's told Holocaust jokes. So what would be the minimum amount of things to go into the pattern?
Pattern of behavior. Well, like, it's not like there's a set number. It's that, you just repeatedly do something. Let's say Chrissy Mayer, like, had a history where she had a whole bunch of racist jokes, but like she hadn't done any like in the past couple years and had like steered away from people who do that type of thing purposely. Then like I won't be comfortable labeling anybody like that just for having a past, whatever.
So I kind of asked you this in the email, but in one of your previous streams, you had mentioned like, it was a previous debate. I can't remember exactly who it's with, but you had mentioned like, if you tell a racist joke between good friends, like that's not a big deal. But if you say it repeatedly, that would get you labeled that. Well, a comedian, if they have a joke that could be considered racist or edgy in their act, now they're repeating that because, they're a comedian. They do the same act night after night. So now is that a pattern of behavior? So is Chrissy Mayer now a racist because she said this joke multiple times, even though it's the same joke? Or does it have to be different jokes?
I mean, if they're just going on stage and telling racist jokes, yeah, that's fairly racist.
So we're talking one joke, Bob. I'm trying to check the consistency in the pattern.
Again. So she just has one racist joke and she doesn't like...
No, I'm just trying to flesh out what the pattern is. So when you mention, if somebody does it repeatedly, so would that count with a comedian, since they tell the same joke night after night? Would that be a pattern for them? But a bystander would not be a pattern because they just tell the joke once. I'm just wondering, it's not a different joke?
In a lot of ways, yeah. It just kind of it's all based on context. So, let's say she goes out there and she tells a joke. And then, obviously, if she tells a joke in public, she's going to get a degree of backlash if she's telling especially if she's doing a racist joke. And then if she comes out and says, hey, I didn't really think about the context of this joke. I apologize for it. I'm not going to do it. Then, then that's easily, that's a pass. It's not a big deal. But if you just go out every night and just tell the same racist joke, no matter what the context or anything, then yeah, that's an issue.
Okay. I don't know. So what do you mean by that's an issue? Do you mean that would then make her a racist if she tells the same joke because it's part of her act? Is that what you mean by issue?
You seem to be getting I guess technically, but we're just essentially saying she's saying a racist joke over and over again without any. So
I don't know if I'd say that it's a racist joke. So one of them that you mentioned was kung flu fighting.
For a couple days, it was 60, 70, 80,000 views, mostly fans and friends of mine. And then suddenly yesterday, it somehow reached the Asian community. They were late on it. I don't know why, but
they're usually ahead of the technical.
Usually
they're very punctual too.
So while I wouldn't say that, it does seem in bad taste. It's literally taking an existing song, putting one letter in it. Mm-hmm. And then what you guys kind of showed in that video was the next person in the video to sing the next line was actually a black dude. I mean, I don't know. Are you saying that they're all racist or just that is racist because...
That's definitely a racist joke because the whole Kung Flu thing was based around it's anti-Chinese sentiment around COVID.
So it's edgy, but I don't think saying that means that you hate Chinese people or are against Chinese people. It's definitely an edgy joke.
Well, it's definitely
again, she's a comedian.
Chinese people for a virus and
everybody was Kung Flu fighting.
From funky Chinatown.
I don't know that it is. I would take umbrage with that. I would disagree with you. I can understand exactly how you'd come to that conclusion. Are you familiar with the comedian Patrice O'Neal?
No.
Okay, he was an amazing comedian. He is known as a comedian's comedian. One of the things that he was really famous for saying is about 50% of the audience should be laughing and about 50% of the audience should be outraged. And that's good comedy. And I do not disagree with him. I'm a huge fan of comedy. And I think for comedians to not be able to say certain things, otherwise they get labeled something, I think that's just not fair. Are you familiar with roast jokes at all or roast comedy?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm familiar with roast comedy, but...
a lot of those jokes are racist and stuff, right? Or they're offensive, they're hateful, but they're comedians, right? They don't necessarily mean it. It's part of an act.
A roast comedy is going to be it's going to be spiteful towards the specific person, not towards a race or something like that.
So I don't know that, everything that you have labeled is about a certain race or anything like that. But you said that it would be problematic if somebody said a joke that could be considered racist. So if that is the case, I don't know. It seems like you would be saying that certain brands of comedy are no longer acceptable. Otherwise, these people should be essentially shut down from speech.
No, I've never even said, like, I don't even know if racist should be shut down from speech, but I mean, I think, like, if they're doing something racist, it should be recognized and called out.
Okay, I might have jumped too much that you guys are looking to shut people down. So another part, so it seemed like the case against Chrissy Mayer was 4 jokes and 6 associations.
Didn't they, the NFL said that they would play the Black national anthem before the regular national anthem? And I was like, what even is the Black national anthem? Is it just sirens? What?
Is Black?
And I'd previously heard you say that, like a joke isn't a big deal. And I'd heard you say that you guys don't label a pattern based off of guilt by association. But it seems like that was the entire case against Chrissy, other than a naughty dream about Tim Pool. So
what do you mean by a pattern based on guilt by association? What do you mean?
So you guys basically, let me see. There was the interview with Ethan Van Sciver. She was on Friday Night Tights. Gavin was on Friday Night Tights. She guest hosted InfoWars. She works for Compound Media. Anthony Cumia owns Compound Media. He's considered a racist. She guested on many other shows. I believe those were the 6 associations. And then also she had a naughty dream about Tim Pool.
Okay. Well, I don't really care about the naughty dream by Tim Pool, although that's weird. But whatever. That was I don't even remember that being brought up. If it was brought up, it was probably just brought up because it was weird. But yeah, as far as like the
it is kind of weird.
I mean, yeah, hosting Alex Jones's show is that's pretty bad. And then like she's on Friday Night Tights all the time.
Why would that be bad? So like if you're a professional out there and you're offered to host that show, why would that be bad? It seems like there would be guilt by association.
I guess I haven't looked at it, but when she hosted it, did she point it in a new direction, or did she just essentially try to?
I have no clue. I've honestly seen like slightly more than what you guys showed on the stream of Chrissy Mayer. That's why I was like, I'm not really a Chrissy Mayer defender. I'm a defender of comedy, and I don't think jokes should be considered racist. I mean, do you think
So do you think jokes should just have a blanket where they're just not considered racist or anything?
I think comedians should kind of they should have some leeway. They shouldn't just be labeled something because they tell a joke. Like, there's some really funny rape jokes out there. I wouldn't label those comedians rapists.
That's a different thing. Rape is an action.
No, for sure. It is completely different. But you said if somebody tells a racist joke, they might be a racist. So
well, yeah, I mean,
that only goes with.
I mean, rape is a specific.
So do you
action.
think that like every comedian
and raping somebody are 2 distinctly different things? Racism can't just be words, and yeah, telling a racist joke is racism.
So I don't. Perhaps we disagree. I'm not sure that racism can just be words. I think it would have to be more than that, but I guess, could I get you to define what you mean by racism? Because we might be talking slightly differently.
Racism? I mean, like I said, it's largely a pattern behaviors where essentially you treat one race as superior to others. I would say frequently with people, this isn't done consciously even really. It's just kind of a bias almost, most commonly.
Okay, so with your definition right there, you said where you treat someone different. To me, that would be more than words, or is treatment just words? So like if I were to say something hurtful.
It can be.
Okay. We might have a slightly different definition on that then. But I do agree with what you're saying, where you treat them differently, and you would definitely, well, I guess superiority might not necessarily come into racism, but I definitely agree if you treat people differently based off the color of their skin, that would be racism.
Okay, excellent.
So you mentioned the pattern there. The only thing that I don't understand on the pattern is where does a pattern form? Like if somebody tells 2 jokes, is that now a pattern?
No, it's they could tell 100 jokes, but they did it years ago, and then I wouldn't really count that towards anything. Because I mean, honestly,
okay, so how frequently would it have to be? So you're saying like years ago wouldn't? So how many years? Because some of the examples that you guys have
I
brought
mean,
up in your streams before,
asking
like
for-
especially against Rags, were like 12 years ago.
Rags hasn't been on the internet for 12 years. But
Maybe it wasn't quite 12, but sorry, it was quite a few years ago.
yeah.
So
but
I'm just kind of wondering, like, how
he still
far
does
back
stuff,
do
recently? So I like it. Well, I mean, listen,
I know? But some
if
of them that
somebody
you chose.
tells a racist joke like a few years ago, and then like 2 weeks ago tells a racist joke, I think it's 100% valid to bring up that they've been doing it for years. I think
So
that's a
2 jokes
completely
would be a
valid point.
pattern then.
No, not 2. No, not just 2, but like
We said
with
if
Rags,
they
there's a
said it
pattern of
years ago and then
behavior.
they said it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, no. If they said it
I know.
years ago,
I
then they
don't quite
still do
understand
it
what that
recently.
means though.
Because if they did it years ago and they're still doing it now, it shows a pattern of behavior.
But you're saying doing it twice isn't a pattern. But you're saying if they did it years ago and then did it again 2 weeks ago, that is a pattern. But that sounds like you're saying twice isn't, but now twice is. I don't quite understand.
I wouldn't really condemn twice because, like, again, like if you do a if you do a racist joke and somebody says, "Hey, that's racist," maybe you shouldn't do that, and the person goes, "Oh, you're right. I didn't really think about it," and then they correct it. Then, poof, it's resolved. However, if a person says, "I'm going to keep on doing that over and over again," then that's an issue.
Okay. So I guess I still don't quite understand when the pattern forms. So like we were kind of going through those associations.
I feel like you're looking for like concrete, like you have to do X, Y, and Z to be qualified, and it's not anything that concrete. I mean, it's just
well, I think it's a really heavy charge to lay on somebody to call them a racist.
Well, I mean,
I don't think that should be taken lightly.
Well, I don't usually like to call people racist unless I see many times of them essentially doing racism. And
how many times?
There's no firm number. It's just if I see them doing it over and over and over again, it's tough to like. So if you see somebody repeatedly doing racism, what do you call that person?
So it kind of depends on what you're talking about. So could you give me the example of the racism?
Just something you consider racism. You see somebody doing that over and over and over again.
Okay. I mean, like, are we talking about like assaulting someone? Are we talking about like yelling at them? Are we talking about like slighting somebody?
Whatever you would consider
not hiring somebody? Well, obviously, whatever I would consider racism that keeps happening would be racism.
Yeah. So if somebody keeps on,
I mean, like
it's
begged in the
racism,
question.
Would you call that person a racist?
Yes, if somebody did something that I consider racist and then they did it repeatedly, yeah, I would consider them a racist. It's literally in the question.
Yeah. No,
But
exactly.
you're not saying that like somebody is doing something racist. You're saying they're doing a pattern of behavior. So like when you guys were looking at Chris Gore, one of the things. Sorry, go right ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that one of the things that we bring up is, the patterns of behavior or is patterns of racism.
So some of the things that you've considered patterns of behavior were nothing. Like literally when you guys were looking into Chris Gore, you saw that he was doing a live stream. Again, I don't know this Chris Gore guy. I just know from watching your guys' stream. So Chris Gore was live and you're watching him talk about Avatar 2 and you guys are kind of going back and forth, or sorry, him and the guy that he was interviewing were kind of going back and forth about the effects in the movie. And then Dane stopped it and said, and you see that right there, that could be him doing cover. You see, you got to look at the pattern that's going on here. It appeared that part of the pattern was literally them talking about CG in a movie. Had nothing to do with any sort of racism, any sort of hate. They were literally praising it. And apparently that was giving cover to it. So that's part of the pattern. That's why I don't understand what you guys mean by the pattern.
I would have to rewatch that clip. But like Chris Gore literally did a video talking about how if Disney wants to keep on putting gay characters in their animation, they should do so under the Disney Sparkle brand.
You can make, whether it's a television show or an animated project or a live action movie, the Disney Sparkle brand could lean into more authentic LGBTQ stories.
Yeah, I don't really condone that. I think that's
yeah.
kind of weird.
I mean, I would call that homophobic.
Okay, that could be considered homophobic for sure. That's why I didn't bring up that example. I think that is a good example of, his behavior. Okay, so do you think that like people have the right not to be offended by a comedian?
Have the right not to be what does that? I mean, of course, I'm a little confused. Was that even the right not to be offended? No.
Yeah. So do you think a comedian should not be offensive?
Oh, I don't have an issue with offensive comedy, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. Well, it kind of seems like you did, based off of like Chrissy Mayer's Sandy Hook tweet. So that's an offensive tweet for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that she should not be able to make a tweet like that? Do you think people have the right not to?
Well, that's the thing. Like, you seem to keep on saying like I'm like want to ban people. She can make that tweet, but
So I didn't say ban. You guys seem to take offense to it, and I'm just wondering, should she not be able to do that?
Well, yeah. Listen, she can do that. I don't she's allowed to do that. I mean, obviously she did. But when you do, when she does something like that, she should expect pushback. She has a right to make a shitty tweet. And we have the right to say, hey, that's a shitty tweet. So, like, Sandy Hook in particular, that's, in my opinion, that's really shitty of her. Because, I mean, she did that hosting the Alex Jones show. Alex Jones is famous and now owes a shit ton of money to the parents of Sandy Hook for lying about their children dying. And yeah, that's the reason why she did that tweet. I would say at the very least that's poor taste.
So I don't know that I could put that intentionality on her. I'm pretty sure she did that tweet because she thought it was funny and offensive and it would probably get a reaction. But I don't know that she did that to like rub it in the faces of the parents of dead children. I don't know if that's fair to put that intention there.
I mean, she knew that was an issue going off the Alex Jones show, unless she's just not looking at the news at all, in which case she should be looking at Alex Jones news if she's going to host his show.
I don't know. I think that's a lot of mind reading that you're doing, where you're saying why she's doing it, the intentionality.
No, I don't care why she did it. The fact is she did it, and it was pretty insensitive and shitty thing to do, don't you think?
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have made that tweet.
Okay.
Again, though, like, I'm not a comedian. I'm not looking to get interaction because of like an edgy joke or anything like that. But you previously just said she did this because, which puts intentionality. You're saying why she did it. That's why I brought up the mind reading. Like, I don't know about that, Bob. I think it could be that, she's a comedian. She's looking to get interaction with a tweet.
Yeah, no, I'm certain that's what most of these guys do. They're just looking for outrage clicks. I'll be blunt. I don't think most of these guys actually even believe the crap they're saying. I think they're doing it all for outrage clicks, just for money.
Okay. I don't know. Wouldn't every comedian be doing it for money, though? So, like, should comedians not be like charging for their shows?
You can make money without mocking the deaths of children.
Okay, so should that be off limits for comedians? Like, you can't say anything. If a kid ever died, like, in any situation, is it now off limits? Could you not talk about car wrecks because kids die in car wrecks?
I'm not here to censor free speech, but I do think, if you do a shitty...
Well, you just said that she shouldn't be doing that.
Well, yeah, I didn't say she can't do it. I said she shouldn't be doing that. Because...
No, but you said she shouldn't be doing it. That's why I asked you, should they not be offended?
Yeah, I just agreed with you. Yes, I said she shouldn't be doing that. But, yeah, that's got me all tangled up there. But no, essentially, she is she's allowed to make a shitty joke. And then if she gets a shitty joke, she should expect pushback. She's mocking the death of children.
Again, you can frame it that way, but I don't know that she's looking at it as mocking the death of children.
Well,
She's
then
saying
she's
an
not
edgy
doing any
stripper name.
research. Of course, I don't know how she could not know that. That's obviously the intent of it.
So again, you're saying that's obviously the intent of it. That's mind reading, Bob. Like, I don't think that's charitable.
Okay, what
You don't know what was in her head when
So,
she said
okay.
it. That might be the effect that you
But-
perceive from it, for sure.
What was the point of the joke then? Explain that joke to me. Why is that
Probably to
joke
get
anything?
attention and probably to get interaction. And it is
Why?
edgy and offensive.
Why would that get interaction?
Because it's outrageous. Like
Why
the
is it
same reason why
is it
everybody like
outrageous?
kind of goes vitriolic and, you know, kind of out there on Twitter. I've seen some of your stuff on Twitter, Bob. Like, it is a little out there. I think it's probably heightened. Like, if you were talking to Eric July, like in person, I don't think you'd say some of those things that you've said. Everybody's somewhat hyperbolic on Twitter. She is looking for interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm certain she's looking for interaction. That being said, you can go through my Twitter history. I don't think I've ever mocked the deaths of children. So when she tells a tweet like that, though, let me ask you, what do you think is possibly the intent? What is the joke behind that?
So it's an edgy stripper name. Like, again, I don't want to say what her intent is. I don't know. Like, all I did is saw that tweet on your screen. I don't know if there's like any follow-ups where she said why she said it or anything. But again, she's a comedian. I'm pretty sure it's just an edgy joke.
Yeah.
I personally love roast comedy, which is some of the edgiest, some of the darkest jokes out there. They're very hateful. I don't think that is actually somebody's real intention out there. I don't think that anyone, I'll put it this way. I don't think a comedian is out there telling you their deepest, darkest secrets in every joke. I think some jokes are just
I would
jokes.
hope not. But okay, so what's the punchline in saying my stripper name is Sandy Hook?
Again, it's shock factor. It's somewhat subversive. It isn't what you'd associate with a traditional stripper's name.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
why isn't that?
You
what
do
you'd
get that,
associate
right?
with-
Like,
yeah, but why isn't that what you?
because how many
associate with
strippers have you
stripper's name?
seen that are named Sandy Hook, Bob? Like, I
Yeah,
really can't
well,
explain the joke
why-
to you.
why
Like, if you
is
don't get
that?
it, you don't get
Why
it. It's
is
not a
that?
great joke.
Yeah, so why wouldn't there be a stripper named Sandy Hook? Why would that name be kind of off limits?
I don't think it would be off limits, Bob. Like, I don't know what you mean by off limits. Do you mean that joke shouldn't be said? Or do you mean that I guess that's the only way that I can interpret that. What do you mean by off limits?
Let me ask you something, because you keep on being like, oh, do you think it shouldn't be said? So, do you think if somebody tells
Well, you just said off limits.
Well, do you think if somebody tells an edgy or racist or bigoted joke, that thing should just go and nobody should call it out?
Yeah, I think that they're comedians.
never,
I think they
ever
say
should-
extremely hyperbolic things.
So if
No,
somebody,
I think the way that you vote is you either walk out of the show or you just don't laugh.
okay, so somebody just says like something racist or bigoted, and you don't think like, so you would fight for a person.
If you're talking about
so-
a comedian, I think that they tell jokes, and I don't think what they're saying is, you know, like their honest opinion on a lot of things. Like, I don't know, because somebody tells a pirate joke, are they a pirate?
That's really no.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the kind of the same thing with a racist joke. Like, I
No,
don't know
it's
that
not.
their actual
So a
intention
pirate- a
or
pirate
what
is
they
a-
think is
pirate-
true in that.
Okay, so a pirate, much like a rapist, that's an activity, or maybe not quite the same, but it's the same thing. There's more to being a pirate than saying.
I would say it's a
than telling
lifestyle.
a pirate joke. Being a racist can be simply saying something racist.
I guess we would have to disagree with that. It's just somebody saying something. So what I'm getting at with the comedians, so
Mhm.
much like as I see your chat is saying, like Jimmy Carr, he's got some of the greatest jokes out there, and some of them are quite racist. I don't think Jimmy Carr is a racist. I think he has really quippy, really dark jokes. I don't think that that's necessarily what he believes. Same thing with like a Tosh or like a Jeselnik. I think these guys have really dark jokes. I don't think that they are horrible people who should be shunned by society because they have such dark jokes. Again, they're jokes.
Okay.
When it's a comedian,
So-
I think it's different.
Number one, you're
If
saying,
somebody is like getting up on stage and giving a speech and saying some of those things, yeah, I think that would be different. But it's a comedian. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah, but
So is a comedian different than a bystander?
again, you keep on asking. It really depends. Like, essentially, if you're using a the issue isn't being a comedian; it's using a public platform. But you keep on saying, like, I'm saying these people should be like shunned from society. They can have family and friends and stuff like that. I think it's just So actually, this will bring me back to another point I wanted to ask you. So, you seem really eager to defend people for saying whatever. Using their words and saying, they can say bigoted stuff, and you seem okay giving them a pass, for the most part.
I don't think that's fair. I think that jokes are jokes, and I don't think
Okay.
comedians should be condemned because they
Okay.
told a joke that's edgy or over some perceived line.
Okay, so you're okay with comedians kind of saying whatever bigoted thing they want to under the context of a joke, then?
I would say yes, comedians do have the free reign and the free speech because of these wonderful, wonderful freedoms that we have in this country. There are different countries where comedians have been gone after for perceived racism or perceived. In Canada, a guy made fun of a Make-A-Wish kid, and he was charged for that. It wasn't even really making fun of him; just the kid didn't die. So when he pointed that out, it took offense. Anyway, I believe he was charged. I can't remember how many thousands for that, but like you were actually charged for a perceived offensive joke. I love the fact that we don't have that in this country.
Okay, so
So yes, I am a very much free speech for comedy.
okay,
Yes, that is what I want.
So you think it's okay for a comedian to go up on stage and say whatever with their words, but you don't think it's okay for somebody to say, "Hey, that might have been racist."
Not in the comedy club. I don't think it's your point to like stand up and start shouting down a comedian that like, hey, that joke was bigoted. I think
well,
that would
it's not
be
even shouting down the comedian. Let's say they just do it on social media later. Say, hey,
Yeah, I
you did
still
X,
think
Y,
that's really-
you did this joke. I think it was insensitive. I think you should think about it.
So I don't see an issue with telling them, hey, you should think about this. If you're trying to boycott them or trying to like talk to the club and say, I was offended, this person should never be booked again, you need to fire them or you need to give me some sort of compensation because I was offended by this. I think that is absolutely wrong. I don't think that is your right as an audience member to have the comedian cater to you.
So so
I
again,
think
you
comedy
seem,
needs to be able to take those.
you seem to be holding a higher standard of free speech for comedians that tell racist jokes than for people who criticize them.
Not really. You would have the same freedom to say, hey, my opinion is different than yours. But if you're going to like try and cancel the person, try to get like financial repercussions to them, I would completely disagree with that. But you have the same freedom of speech. You could tweet at them like, hey, that joke wasn't great.
Well,
But if you're trying to like get a hate mob together and go after them, no, I don't think that that's right. I don't think that's your spot. And I don't think it's your spot as an audience member to stand up and shout down the person. I don't think they have the right.
I mean,
sorry, go right ahead.
comedians have hecklers, and some comedians actually handle.
Yeah,
it
I
quite
don't
well.
think
that's
that
almost
that's-
their shtick. And then,
Yeah, that doesn't mean that that's, the responsibility of an audience to heckle someone. There are certain audiences where, like it's expected, but the average audience, no, you're not supposed to heckle someone. Like,
well,
if you want to, I mean, like, it's up to you, but you'll probably get kicked out of a club because it's not what's
Yeah,
expected of an
well, I
audience.
mean,
You either
it
clap
kinda-
or don't.
it all depends on how extreme it gets. But again, I don't understand why comedians can get this free pass on free speech and be free from criticism. But
I've never said they should be free of criticism.
Well, that's
I don't understand where you got that, Bob. So I literally
that's
went
what
through
you've
this.
been
Could I get you to
arguing for.
repeat back? No. So I didn't say free of consequence, or I literally said you should be able to go ahead and tell them, like, I disagree with this.
So
but if
wait.
you're talking about the consequences, trying to get them fired, or you literally shout them down while they're on stage, yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Well, I mean, again, like shouting them down on stage, again, that's kind of an extreme example. It doesn't happen that often, unless it's actually a heckler thing. But a heckler thing, they do happen. That's not unheard of. That being said, again, so we're dealing with you said they shouldn't be free from criticism. Well, what if the criticism is pointing out they're telling racist jokes?
I mean, you can do that. Again, it's a joke though. Like, I wouldn't say that, anyone who tells a joke, they're telling you, like, again, what's in their heart. Like, have you ever told a dirty joke, Bob? Or a joke that's dark?
Of course I have.
Are you standing behind that joke? Like, you actually believe what's in that joke? Or could it just be a joke?
Of course not. But
so with comedians, a lot of the time it's that. It's, what's a funny concept is this. Hey, what's kind of subversive? This. What people wouldn't expect? It really depends.
Mm-hmm. So, let's bring this to a bit more of a modern thing. So, lots of comedians, namely Dave Chappelle and Ricky Gervais, have made a lot of money doing specials just making fun of trans people. What are your thoughts on that?
I would disagree with you, Bob. I don't think that they were just making fun of trans people. I think that that's a really poor interpretation of it. I know. I really like both of their specials. You should. It's really good. Ricky Gervais is awesome.
Yeah.
With Chappelle,
stuff, but anyways,
with Chappelle, over half of his special was talking about his friend who was a trans woman, who was bullied into suicide by people for supporting him. That's not anti-trans. Like, I really can't appreciate your framing of that. It seems so uncharitable and so inaccurate.
Dude, like, I saw the Dave Chappelle special, so I haven't seen what you're talking about.
Okay, can you tell me what part of it was anti-trans?
Like, I saw...
Or you said bigoted against trans?
Yeah, no. I saw a special where essentially half of it was really funny and half of it was, like, trans shit, where he's just making fun of trans people.
And they've canceled people that are more powerful than me. They canceled J.K. Rowling. My God, J.K. Rowling wrote all the Harry Potter books by herself. She sold so many books, the Bible worries about her. And they canceled her because she said in an interview, and this is not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as shit. They started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what the fuck that was. But I know that trans people make up words to win arguments. So I looked it up. TERF is an acronym. Stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminists. This is a real thing. This is a group of women that hate transgender. They don't hate transgender women, but they look at trans women the way we blacks might look at blackface. It offends them. Like, ooh, this bitch is doing an impression of me.
And that was pretty shitty, in my opinion.
So does that mean that, like, you can't joke about it? Because he also said that he would respect their pronouns. He said he would call them whatever. That doesn't seem super transphobic. There were some jokes in there. I don't know that his actual, like, beliefs...
Joke.
But again, it's comedy. Like, so do you think that he believes every single joke that he's ever told?
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't even matter if he believes it. I mean, like I brought up, a lot of people we go after I don't necessarily think they believe half the shit they're saying. They're doing it for outrage clicks and for money. But it doesn't mean, just because they don't mean it in their heart of hearts, doesn't mean they aren't putting that message out into the world, which is the issue.
Yeah, I don't know that I can quite follow you there, that this somehow means that he's transphobic, or I don't know, like, even his like TERF jokes or whatever, they really seemed like he wasn't actually understanding exactly what, like, that somewhat bigoted group, like the trans exclusionary radical feminists. It doesn't seem like he actually quite understood what they were saying, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like the way that he was saying on Team TERF put through, like, that he has a great understanding of what that position actually means. It seems more like, hey, this is a joke, this would be funny to say this.
So don't you think...
In my opinion, but again, I can't read his mind.
Don't you think it'd be incumbent upon him to make sure to research that type of thing before he starts talking about it before an audience of millions?
So before you say a joke that could make people laugh because it's somewhat unexpected, like, who the hell yells out, I'm Team TERF?
I'm Team TERF.
So because that would be unexpected. He should do research and then not tell that joke. Is that what you're saying? I don't quite understand what you mean by he should do research.
Yes, he should do research on what turf means.
Again, so you think that because he said that, he actually believes it, that he is on team. I mean, you regularly
I don't
stream
know.
with a dude named Turf. Like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, I understand he spells it differently. He's not on team Turf. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Just because you say turf, I don't know that it necessarily means the exact same thing as, like, you're actually trans exclusionary.
So are you arguing that somehow he meant I'm on team turf, TUR or TURF?
No.
Like surf or something
I'm just
like
arguing that. No. So I think he thought it's funny to say, but I don't actually know that he wants to exclude trans. He didn't do it in his personal life. He seemed to be a friend with Daphne, the woman who, was forced into suicide by the trans community not supporting her because she supported him.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say that he's exactly trans exclusionary. Mm-hmm. I believe that was a joke, Bob.
But he does yell that in his special to an audience of millions that I'm team turf.
Yes, while he's on a stage doing comedy.
After he says that.
He's not giving a speech about what America should be doing. He's doing comedy,
after he says I'm team turf, does he go, oh, I'm just joking.
It's just
I don't
a joke.
like turfs, etc. Does he say that?
Have you seen, dark comedy? Have you seen like a Jimmy Carr or like an Anthony Jeselnik or any of these so-called dark comedians? Have you
no
seen any of theirs?
It's been a while since I've done deep dives in the comedy.
You said you knew Gervais. After Gervais says every joke, should he be like, that's just a joke, guys? Kidding.
No, but...
I didn't actually mean it.
But,
so that
if you
seems
say
to be the standard that you're trying to levy for Chappelle.
If you say something... Like, what's the joke in saying I'm team turf? What is the joke there?
Well, the trans community seemed to be going after him. So he said, it's been like a year since I've seen it, but I think it's like, fuck it, I'm team turf. I believe, if I remember how his line of, I don't want to mind read him.
So
it seems like it's a funny joke because...
You don't want to mind read him, but he says I'm on team turf. Yeah. What does that tell you?
That he's making a joke. That this is part of a comedy special.
No,
he's on stage doing comedy.
You're mind reading him there, because all he's saying is I'm on team
I'm mind reading him that he's doing comedy?
Well, all he's saying
I'm
is
mind reading that
he's
doing comedy?
Because as far as I can tell, saying I'm on team turf isn't a joke. It's just a statement.
I understand that you don't see it as a joke. Again, going back to that Patrice O'Neill quote, if 50% of the audience is laughing and 50% is against you, you are succeeding in comedy.
So, I'm trying to...
Bob, is there any kind of comedy that you would want that every single person in the world would laugh at? Do you think that would be good comedy?
Of course not. But you know what? If you're going to go on to a stage of millions, especially some of these bigger guys, and just say stuff that's essentially bigoted or transphobic or whatever, I don't think getting called out for that is entirely a bad thing. I think it should be recognized that, hey, maybe those jokes are in bad taste.
Okay, what do you mean by called out? You said if you do that, you should be called out. Can you explain what that means? Does that mean going on Twitter and saying, hey, I didn't like this? Does that mean getting people together and going after, Netflix? What does being called out mean,
it means
in your
essentially
opinion? You just use that phrase.
It seems essentially people using their voice and saying, hey, that's transphobic and insensitive and you shouldn't do that.
Okay. So people using their voice, how would you say they're doing that? Would you say that they should be picketing Netflix or?
I mean, I guess if they feel so impassioned by it, I don't know if I'd go that far, but if they feel impassioned by it, then yeah. I don't have anything against that per se.
I think we disagree. So again, I do believe in free speech, so I think that people do have the right to go ahead and say.
If Dave Chappelle, well, that's the thing that kind of drove me nuts. So he did a comedy special, and at the end he said, hey, listen, I'm not going to do any more trans jokes. They're not with me on this, and I'm not going to do any more trans jokes. And so this will be the end of this kind of era of my career, or this era of my career, or whatever. He said that. And I was like, okay, let's not get too rough on him. Okay, we'll move on. And then he goes back and just starts doing it again. For me, that's pretty shitty.
What do you mean, in the same special, or?
No, I mean later specials.
I'm not sure if I know a later special that he did that. I'm not saying that
Well, I don't know if he did it in
that he
specials,
hasn't, but
I know
I don't.
he's done it. I know he's performed them. I know.
I don't know if I've heard him do one since that, but I don't know if I've seen a special since that last special on Netflix.
I know I've seen articles about him doing performances, and he still does them. So.
Okay. I'm not aware of that. That definitely could be the case, but yeah.
So, like, my biggest thing would be, like, if somebody tells, like, a joke and they don't mean it to be... Like, if he says, I'm Team Turf, and he doesn't mean it to be that mean, and then, like, people come out and say, like he gets a pushback, and people say, hey, that's really insensitive. I don't think you meant that. And he reflects on it. He goes, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I didn't mean that. Makes a little public statement.
So he literally has part
tweet.
of that... So part of that special... was him and his relationship with Daphne, and he did have that exact experience that you're talking about, where basically she changed his mind on it.
In that same special, he does trans jokes.
Yeah, and he's a comedian, and he was being attacked by people, and his friend was like bullied into, self-deleting.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of really weird that he does trans jokes in the same special where he talks about that.
Okay. Look, I think comedians should be free to go ahead and test where the line is, and part of that means that they're going to have to go over the line. Mm-hmm. And that is going to happen.
Yeah, and
every once in a while, and it's not going to be for everybody.
Yeah, no, and I'll be blunt. I'm okay if they occasionally go over the line. And then people call him out and say, hey, you went over the line. And then go, oh, you're right. I'll take it a step back. I think that's reasonable. You seem to be arguing that, they should just keep on going over the line. And I think that's weird because I think as a comedian, I haven't really done comedy in a while. But as a comedian, I would like to know when I've gone over that line. I'd like to know, if somebody says, hey, you really... Like, if I say something in my show that, like, people view as like offensive or transphobic or something like that, I want people to tell me.
So you do get to know when you go over that line. The audience doesn't laugh. And then you adjust the joke the next time.
Okay. So how do you know that if you're just like doing a tweet then?
So you look at the interaction, and I'm guessing you look at the ratio. If it's really hate ratio, that joke probably wasn't successful.
But here's the deal.
It's not the exact same as being in a comedy club doing comedy, because Twitter, anyone can see your tweet.
Yeah.
Where in that comedy club, you'd have to actually be in that comedy club.
But on Twitter, all interaction is essentially positive. You might get hate comments, but it's still
what do you...
That's how social media works.
I'm not sure I understand by Twitter, all interactions are positive.
Yeah, pretty much. Like on
I don't know,
social
man.
media,
I
all
think you can get
interactions
ratioed to hell.
In the algorithm. Yeah, sure, you can get ratioed.
Oh, algorithm.
In the algorithm.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, people have killed their career and they've been permanently canceled for stuff that's on there. I wouldn't say that those are positive interactions.
Name an example.
Justine Sacco. I don't know if you remember, it was like 10 years ago. She's the person who said, like, I'm on a plane going to Africa. I hope I don't get AIDS. Yeah, that person was, before the plane landed, she was fired. She apparently still hasn't been able to get a job, and that's like over a decade ago.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider that a positive interaction in any way on social media.
All right. Well, did she apologize for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah, her life was completely ruined for that. Like, I bet you she wishes she never made that tweet.
Well, I mean, did she have a history of that, or did I don't believe
so. I don't know too much about it. Just like that was the first time I knew of like canceling.
So here's what I will say.
And she was not a comedian. She was just some person who thought that would be really funny. So, you know, I think it's different.
Okay, but here's what I will say. If she just it's not a great line. But if she just did that once and she apologized, I personally don't think that's a big deal. And that, like I said, I don't know the full context. If there's more context, this I find out later. And people are likely to email it to me or comment.
That was just the first one that came to me off the
learn
top of my head, but that was a horrible situation. I just couldn't see any positive interaction on social media from that. I don't know how we even got to that weird. I don't know how we're on this now from the pattern.
Well, I mean, here's the thing that I've noticed in general with cancel culture. Most of the time, you're dealing with really famous people who don't really get canceled. Like, apparently, like I hear about Dave Chappelle, like we just brought him up, getting canceled. He's not remotely canceled. Bill Cosby's working on comedy again. Like, the only real example of cancel culture I've seen is, like, Harvey Weinstein, who's in jail where he should be.
So I don't think anybody would consider that cancel culture. Like, my God, Cosby and, Weinstein, all those guys, that's actual, like, crimes. Like, that's not people being canceled. That's justice. Like, nobody is calling that cancel culture, but like people trying to get Chappelle fired from Netflix or get his specials taken down, that would be attempts at cancellation. And just because they aren't successful doesn't mean it hasn't happened. So that Justine Sacco woman that we were just talking about, she got canceled.
Okay.
Just because you have an example where somebody was able to come back after being canceled doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
So
he is never going to be able to come back.
So would you count like the people currently boycotting Budweiser as cancel culture?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not really. I think people can vote with their dollars. So, like, if they just don't want to do it, fine. I think if everyone's going to, like, get together and say this is the worst thing ever, I don't know. I wouldn't participate.
Wait,
but people are free to do it.
You just said you'd be against it if somebody was putting together, like, a thing to boycott a comedian. But, like, you're saying that's okay to do that in, like, Budweiser? Like, it seems like you're being really selective.
I mean, people
with
have
your
free
cancel
speech,
culture.
so.
You're being really selective with your cancel
Not really.
culture.
So, no, I heard you say that, Bob.
Yeah.
I would like to explain why I don't see really a difference with that. I think people can go ahead and, say their opinion on any given thing. And I think people can vote with their dollars. But I think it's really I don't know. Maybe it's just not something that I would do, where I would ever get involved in a boycott and, like, talk to people, try and rally them in and get somebody to actually, jump on board and boycott this thing. It's not something I would do, but that doesn't mean that I don't think people should do it. But when we were talking about comedians, I don't think they should be shouted down for telling jokes that people don't agree with.
Okay, so that's the thing. So where do you stand on the whole Budweiser thing?
I don't know. I think it's really crappy beer. I'm not a huge fan of it.
I
don't think that it's necessarily. Yeah, I heard you guys talking, I think last night or whenever about that. Yeah, so I mean, like, I don't know. I never really bought the product, really. I would always go with kind of a tastier beer, usually like a local one. But I don't know. I don't think that's a great spokesperson. I think, so I understand the CEO or VP was saying that she was trying to get a new audience in there. Fair enough. It just kind of seems like, when she was talking a bunch of smack on, like, the old way that they were advertising, the old guard that they were trying to advertise to, it seems like you are alienating your audience at the expense of trying to get a new audience. I don't know that that's a smart move, but again, they're free to do it. I just don't think it's a smart move.
Okay, but, like, you're okay with people boycotting it now?
What do you mean now? So I never said that I wasn't. I said I wouldn't do it, but people are free to do it. I don't think that they should try and cancel. Would you criticize
people for doing it?
Yeah, I mean, so what do you mean by criticize? If you're saying right now, like, am I against all the people boycotting it? I'm not in support of that. I'm not going to buy it, but I wasn't buying it before. So I don't know that that's necessarily like I'm participating in the boycott. I don't know what you mean by shout them down. I'm just saying.
Well,
like,
I mean, I feel like
not something I would do, but technically I'm not buying it. So
yeah, no,
am I a part of it?
I feel like I don't know. There's a weird double standard here where, like, let's say I criticize somebody for being, like, super bigoted, and you're like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But then, like, essentially.
No, I never said that you shouldn't criticize someone for being bigoted. I said I would actually like to know what your standard for calling them bigoted is. And then I hear you say a pattern of behavior. So then I'm asking, okay, what is that pattern of behavior? I never said that you shouldn't do it. I just want to understand how you get to there.
Oh, well, I mean, we've come back.
You understand
around,
that?
So, I mean, I guess I'm not 100% sure where you're asking, but essentially it's a pattern of bigoted behavior. It's essentially saying repeated things publicly that are bigoted.
Okay. Well, could I run through like a couple of examples with you, and then maybe you could tell me like, would that be a pattern or no?
If you want, sure.
Okay. So if someone uses like an ableist slur or ableist slurs, would you call them a bigot?
And
is that a pattern of behavior?
Okay, so again, it all has to do with context.
Okay. It appears they're just kind of upset at somebody and they call them like the R slur. Would that be a pattern of behavior?
I mean, the R slur is not great, but are you just talking about like once?
Maybe they've done it a few times. I mean,
honestly,
in the past.
Yeah, no, I've definitely used the R slur plenty of times. Yeah, no, I'm actually trying to correct that right now.
So would you be a bigot? Is that a pattern of behavior that makes you a bigot?
Well, that's not really something I see a whole lot of, and I know the R slur in particular, like frequently people use it when they're not talking about disabled people. So that's I would say definitely that's more of a knowledge thing. That there's certain things that I feel like people just need kind of educated on. And the R slur I feel like is kind of falls a bit more into that one, but there's more things that are more brazen.
Okay. So what if somebody says a sexist joke? Are they now sexist?
I mean,
if they've said an ableist slur and then a sexist joke, are they now a bigot? According to a pattern of behavior.
I mean, again, like the context is all that matters. So essentially just saying a sexist joke, I have no context for that. I mean, maybe you're like doing a parody of a sexist when you do that. And in which case, okay, maybe that could be funny. Maybe you're on a YouTube channel complaining every time a woman pops up on screen or is involved with the production of a show. Then that would be pretty sexist, yes.
So then would that be a pattern? I guess I don't quite understand, because you're saying like if they said something that is a pattern, then it would be a pattern.
Yeah,
so
no.
I'm trying to figure out what constitutes a pattern.
If somebody does a YouTube video where they complain about a woman, like every time a woman does something in a show, or every time a woman is involved.
But you're describing a pattern right there. You're saying every time. So I'm trying to figure out what constitutes the pattern, and you're saying, well, if there's a pattern. So I agree.
Yeah,
there's a pattern, like that makes sense. I'm trying to figure out what you actually say a pattern is. Like where does the pattern start? At what point does it become a pattern?
When they're doing it like over and over again.
So how many times would that be? So if somebody says the R slur,
you're acting like there's some set number. There's no set number. It's just when they're doing it over and over again, and they're still doing it to this day. There's no reflection. They just keep on doing it over and over again.
So that seems very vague. It seems like that could be like two times.
What's vague about that?
You said over and over again. So is that 3 times now?
Are you serious? I feel like you're being purposely obtuse over what I'm saying.
So I feel like you're being purposely vague. So I don't want to, like throw accusations back and forth, but no. Every time I've asked you to define it, you keep coming back to it's a pattern.
Okay.
And I don't know at what point it becomes a pattern and at what point it's no longer.
I will go ahead and describe a YouTuber for you. So let's say there's a YouTuber. Every time he reviews stuff, and every time he reviews something, every time a woman does something, he criticizes that woman, except that woman does something, traditionally feminine. If they do something outside that norm, he always criticizes them. He always criticizes if there's a woman involved with the writing or the staff in any way. And then not only does he do this once, but he does this pretty much every single video he does. What would you call that person?
Well, it seems like you've just described a pattern. So
yes, thank you. That's a pattern.
Well, you said but you're begging the question because you're saying he's doing this in every video that he does.
Yes.
So, okay. So I agree. A pattern is a pattern. So baked into your question was a pattern. So I don't feel like that's a fair example. You're not explaining what an actual pattern is. So could we get back to some examples, and then you could tell me if this is or not a pattern?
I mean,
Or-
that whole thing,
I feel-
that was
Sorry,
an
go ahead.
example. If somebody is always, like,
Yeah, it
making
was an
fun of
example of
women
you
over
said
and
somebody
over and over
does
again.
this thing every video.
Yes.
So I don't feel like that is an example, because you said when there. So essentially, instead of saying over and over again or in every video, you said there is a pattern. This constitutes a pattern.
Yeah, so,
So
when
I
somebody is
understand
always
that.
being sexist in every single video, always finding a reason to make fun of women in every single context, in every single video, and he does it over and over again, what would you call that?
So that's really begging the question when you're saying somebody does it in every video and they're doing it over and over again.
Yeah, a lot
Like,
of these guys, that's what
Based
they do.
off of that, that would of course be a pattern.
Yes.
So that's not what Chrissy Mayer does, and you guys called that a pattern of bigotry.
Well,
So
I mean-
I don't believe she makes a Sandy Hook tweet every time she's on Twitter.
No,
I
but
believe she's a comedian, and she tells some edgy jokes.
we haven't done a full-fledged deep dive into Chrissy Mayer. I'm sure there's plenty of cringe in there because I've been able to find some with just surface level stuff. That being said, she has some really bad associations, so I'm sure she has plenty of stuff.
So previously in the past, you said that, associations aren't automatic. Guilt by association isn't an automatic thing. But then you mentioned that she hosted Alex Jones's show, or guest hosted Alex Jones's show, and that proves that she's a bigot.
Why? So I'm not sure where you're getting guilt by association isn't an automatic thing is some sort of weird.
You just said she has a
blanket
bunch
statement.
of associations.
Yes.
You said, so what was your point in bringing those up other than guilt by association?
Because it is guilt by association. That's 100% what that is.
So didn't you just say, but it's not guilt by association, but now you're saying it is guilt by association?
I'm not really sure when I said it's not guilt by association. But essentially, yeah.
Like
no,
2 minutes ago.
No, I might have been quoting you, but no, I never said it's not guilt by association. But
Okay.
yeah, no, essentially, like, let's say if somebody, let's say if somebody goes on Friday Night Tights, they don't know what it is. They're new to YouTube. They're a new YouTuber. They go on there. They don't know what it is. And then they go on there and they're like, oh shit, this is crazy. But they play nice because these are bigger YouTubers. They don't want to get offended. And then afterwards they go, they go away and they go, that was a lot like rougher than I thought it would be. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. I wouldn't want to condemn somebody like that by guilt by association for going on Friday Night Tights. But if somebody does stuff like that over and over and over and over again, we're talking about patterns.
Okay. So at what point does it become a pattern? So like the associations for Chrissy Mayer was that she went on Friday Night Tights. So you rolled your eyes and you
Yeah, no, I'm
like,
getting a little bit
really
annoyed.
shot back in your chair there. I don't quite understand.
Because you keep on asking what's a pattern. I describe these patterns to you, and you're like, "Oh, well, I don't know if that's a pattern." It's like you are.
So you
being
haven't
very
actually
purposely vague.
described what constitutes a pattern. You've basically
I've
begged the
actually
question each
described it
time and
quite a
said,
few
"Hey,
times.
here's this pattern of repeated." Okay. Well, I don't quite understand then. So could we possibly go about this a different way so that we can find out like when it becomes a pattern?
Yeah,
as
no, you're
opposed
looking
to
for firm definitions.
A small
where
collection
I'm
of
just-
something?
When my big thing is I point out that people keep on doing the same things over and over again in videos, and you're saying somehow that doesn't qualify as a pattern because of X, Y, and Z, when I'm saying, of
No,
course it
I literally
qualifies as a
said,
pattern.
hey. No, I literally said that if you're describing a pattern that somebody does it every single time and does it over and over again, it's like, yeah, who would disagree that that's a pattern? I'm trying to find out, okay, when does this become a pattern? You're describing something that's already
I tell
a
you
pattern.
what, I've already pretty much described the pattern of these guys. So, I guess go ahead and tell me. I need to go grab my drink real fast. I'm right over here. I'm listening. But
Okay.
go ahead and tell me.
No problem.
Like, while I'm grabbing it, tell me real fast, what would qualify for you as a pattern? What are you looking for?
So I wouldn't qualify my definition of racism as a pattern of behavior. Again, I really don't feel like it's honest or it's beneficial to label somebody that way. I feel like the way that you guys are doing it, you could basically blanketly put this accusation on anybody. So I wouldn't have
Well,
a
I mean,
definition
you
for it. That's
haven't-
why I'm trying to find out
you
what
haven't-
constitutes a pattern
well-
to you.
Well, I already defined what is to me. It's somebody doing the same thing over and over again, making repeated videos on a public platform, doing the same thing over and over again.
So you're saying somebody is doing something over and over again. So does that mean? So again, you won't say like a definitive amount of times. Over and
Because
over
there
again
isn't a
sounds like
definitive
3
number.
times.
Dude, it has nothing to do with the number of times I say that. It has, when I say over and over again, just assume I'm, et cetera, into infinity pretty much at this point. Because if, like I said, if somebody was doing this over and over again, but they did it like 12 years ago and they haven't done it since, they've been trying to be like, kind of respectful since then, I wouldn't want to call that out. But if they're doing it over and over again, maybe 10 years, maybe doesn't matter how long ago, they keep on doing it over and over again up to present day, they keep on doing it, then yeah, I think that's worth getting called out.
Okay, so how far back do you go with your inquiry?
Doesn't matter.
At what point is off limits?
If they're still doing it, it doesn't matter.
So, like, for instance, in the 90s, when, it was okay to do some language that wouldn't be acceptable today, if you said whatever, any slur back then, like R slur or, any of, like, the gay slurs or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I already said
say it once
I
now,
won't be so quick to condemn somebody for the R slur, but like the F slur back in the 90s, I won't condemn somebody as harshly as I
was
would
thinking more
nowadays.
like calling everything gay. Like, I would still consider that, like, kind of, it's not something I would do now, but I know, everyone was doing that in the 90s if you were...
Yeah, no, that's not quite as bad.
It feels
as the
like it was in
F slur at all,
popular
but
culture a lot.
That's a similar thing, yes.
No, but I just mean, okay, so if you then do that now, but you did it in the 90s, so there's, a long jump between those, is that a pattern?
Dude, I already explained. Like, if you did something in the 90s, but you're not doing it now, then no, that I wouldn't want to count that.
No, you did it in the 90s a few times, and then you do it, like, once now. Does that mean that now it is a pattern because you did it previously, and now you're doing it again?
That's such a weird example. But if you did it in the 90s and then you do it once now, that's not good. If it's a slip of the tongue, then I would let it go. But, like, if they... Like I said, like, doing it once now, I don't even really care. But if you're doing it over and over again now, then that's the issue.
Well, okay. So what do you mean by over and over again?
I mean over and
so
over
I
again.
said just once now, and you said no. But then you said if you do it over and over again, yes. So what does that mean?
I mean, literally...
Could you define what over and over again means?
I don't have as much on Chrissy Mayer, but on a lot of these guys we cover, I can probably pull up hundreds of examples. Let me put it this way. If
on Chrissy Mayer?
I literally just said I don't have as much on Chrissy Mayer, but on a lot of these guys, we have
Sorry, I thought you said you could get hundreds of examples on...
Sorry, if I did research, I probably could, but no, I don't have any on Chrissy Mayer. I don't have as much.
Okay, I just assumed, like... All right. Well, I'm sorry I misheard you. I thought you were saying hundreds of examples on Chrissy Mayer.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to bring that up in the question when I asked you in chat the other day, just because that was the example you guys went through. And I'd previously heard you say, like, jokes aren't really an example and associations aren't, but then that appeared to be your entire
context, case. Well, I don't recall ever saying associations don't matter. Associations... Who you associate with is a good judge of your character.
Okay. So if somebody said that they had, like, racist friends, would that be guilt by association?
I mean, it matters. I mean, it depends.
So would that be part of a pattern?
It depends.
So if somebody had, like, previously or currently says, like, the R slur, and they say that they have racist friends, are they now a racist or a bigot?
Who is this random fictionalized person?
I'm literally trying to, like, find out where you say this is now a pattern. So it's fictional.
Dude, like, listen, I don't like to call people racist or bigots or anything like that. But like I said, when they're doing that type of thing when they're releasing video after video after video of doing that, then yeah. I will call them those things.
Who's they? So, like,
a lot of
Chrissy
people I
Mayer is
cover.
releasing video after video after.
Listen, again,
But Chrissy Mayer was somebody that you covered, and
So-
I don't think that she did.
I'm sure I could deep dive in Chrissy Mayer and find a whole bunch of stuff. I'm absolutely certain. That being said, I haven't. I have done deep dives into people like Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, Eric July, lots of these guys, and they do it all the time. They do, like, it's every video with them. Every single video.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with a lot of their content. I've definitely seen a little of Eric July's content, and I don't necessarily agree with the way that you frame his opinions. I've definitely watched your debate with him, and I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the ways that you framed what he was saying, and you were calling that racism in that video or in that debate. So I don't know. I'm not sure that I would necessarily, I would have to see the context for myself before I would ever fully be willing to call him that or anything.
Okay. I mean,
But,
you're welcome to
okay,
look up his
so-
videos. They're there. They're public on YouTube.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen a few of them. Like, for instance, we don't have to get into it because it's kind of the pattern of behavior is really what I wanted to talk to you about, not necessarily like trying to defend Eric July from your accusations. But I don't know. A lot of what you were saying about his Miles Morales take was that he didn't like black people.
Well, he doesn't like
being
Miles Morales
Spider-Man,
because he's
or
black.
he didn't like. So you said that nearly like 5 times in that debate, and he kept correcting you, like that's not what he was saying. He was saying because he saw him as a token character.
Yeah, and what did he define?
But that's
token?
not so.
But what did he define token as?
As somebody who was created just to tick a box, and then you kept saying, so you're saying just because he's black.
So yeah,
And that
no,
wasn't what
because
he said
then
once
I'd
in
press him on
debate.
that and ask him what box he's trying to tick, and he would say that the
Yeah,
box of Black Spider-Man.
So again,
which
I don't
means
know the
it's
whole
because he's
history. I
black.
just watched the debate.
Well, I
Why
haven't
you
seen your
ask?
Miles Morales one, so educate me. What is the problem with Miles Morales? I know
My
lots of
issue
people
was- my
love
only
him.
issue- That's fine. Tokenization. That's it. That's simple.
But
I
people
think
love him.
tokenization is lazy. That's fine. People,
Well,
people love him. and I'm free to not.
how's it
That's
tokenization though?
libertarian.
It's like he's his own character.
No, he's not. He's Spider-Man.
All right, so what?
Yeah, he's not the first
There-
Spider-Man.
So what?
That's tokenization.
Do you have an issue with Barry Allen?
Barry Allen is not tokenization. He's not original,
How?
but he's not tokenization.
How's he not
Because he's
tokenization?
white.
But
'Cause he's
so
white.
wait, the race matters.
Yes, that's what tokenization is.
So okay, so
No, he was saying that the creator created him for his son essentially, and he wanted. I don't know the whole history behind it,
Mhm.
so I would just be repeating Eric's argument. I'm not looking to argue that with you. I just didn't think it was fair what you were framing his argument as.
well, I mean, his
was all I
argument was
saying.
that he
He
has
kept
issue
giving
with
you an answer, and then you
Miles.
kept saying, "So you're saying because it's black?"
No, because his argument, because I gave him chances to answer, because I asked him what tokenized means. He says tokenized means he was meant to check a box. And I said, what box is he checking? He said Black Spider-Man, which essentially means the issue is that he's black, because it doesn't have an issue with Spider-Man as far as I can tell. So yeah, no, that essentially means the issue is that he's black. But if you want to, where was I going?
I don't think that's necessarily a good faith or charitable way of actually framing that.
I mean, that's what he said.
But again, I'm not here to argue that. Like,
I mean,
I don't
are you
know
are you
the
reading
creator
his
of
mind
that.
now? I'm just telling you what he said.
No, I was literally just listening to the debate and the words that he was saying, and then the
Mhm.
words that you were saying.
Okay,
And you kept telling him he's saying this, but he was not saying that.
but he did say that. So let me.
So he
So like, there's this
didn't.
whole. So the argument of a character, like, I always thought this was interesting. So an argument about a character being made to check a box. What exactly does that mean?
So that means that essentially you're not creating a story for the sake of the story, but you're actually taking a box off of some sort of inclusionary status. It
Well,
could be good. It
wait.
could be bad. It depends on how they
Okay.
do it.
So, you're creating a character to check some sort of inclusionary box. So, is it possible for that character to, number one, like lots of characters, like there's tons of box checking.
Wait, I
when you
really
do
like Into the
characters.
Spider-Verse. Like, I'm
Okay.
a fan of what I know of Miles
Okay.
Morales. Like, that's why I said I'm not here to like argue for him. I just watched that debate and I felt like it was uncharitable the way you kept framing
Well,
his argument.
I mean,
But
that's
I mean,
the
like, I'm
thing,
not here
like-
to argue that with you. But
okay. Well, I mean, you brought it up.
so you've called him racist in the past, and that's why I wanted to know, like, so what's his pattern of behavior? You said, well, go watch his his videos.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, like, could you tell me what?
Dude, he's been going
his
hard. He's
pattern
been
of
going
behavior
hard
is?
transphobic recently.
Now, you'll see in the room right here, there is it's a flag, looks like a trans flag, and it says protect trans kids. Okay, I've made this point many times. There's no such thing, okay? And yeah, Hollywood's infested with these freaking weirdos. It's not at all surprising. When they said they were going to be coming for your children, and people, they said they were religious zealots, they were off base when they would say that. That's kind of where we were going, the direction. Well, they were certainly correct here. I hate that this is a conversation that we have to have a discussion about, but it is a very serious one because you have people that are actively acting as if this is something that needs to be normalized, and that is child mutilation.
Yeah, I don't really follow him that much, but
Okay.
I
mean,
don't know.
he
I'd have to
has.
look into what he's doing before I have like a opinion on that. I just knew like your debate with him.
Okay. I mean, honestly, his rhetoric's gotten much worse since my debate with him, so.
I'll have to. I don't know. I'll have to look into it because I just saw your debate with him.
So-
I know a little bit more of his material than that, but it was kind of what's this ISOM thing?
Okay,
But
well,
that's really it.
Can I ask you a question? If you see somebody
Sure.
always doing, like, let's say somebody does it, like you watch somebody's channel and you notice they start doing video after video that is always, like, making fun of women. Consistently always making fun of women. What would you call that person?
So what do you mean by consistently and always? Because
Consistently
you
and
have
always.
it baked into there that this is a pattern because it's consistently and always. So, I mean, baked into that, you're again begging the question. Like,
Dude,
hey, Bob,
it's
if
a
you are
hypothetical.
always being racist, would you consider yourself I mean, like, you're right.
If
It's a
I'm always being
hypothetical, but you're
racist,
baking
yes, I
into it
consider
a
myself
pattern.
a racist. That's what racism is.
Well, I mean, like, that's essentially the question that you're asking me. And it's like, yeah, of course, if somebody is always X, then yeah, they would be X.
Mm-hmm.
It's baked into that question. That's why I'm trying to find out, okay, if they just say this a few times, like 3 times, is that a pattern?
No.
Okay, so then 4 times?
No.
Is that the pattern?
Dude, always. Every single video, they always do it.
So, I mean, okay, how many videos do they have? Are they a comedian? Like, are they telling a
They
joke
do at
in
least
this,
one video
or-
a week.
Okay, how many weeks have they been going for?
They've been going for quite a few years.
So, I mean, with that, you're talking like over 100 videos. Like, if you're saying that they do it every single video over 100 times, like, yeah, I would consider that a pattern. I think
Thank
anyone
you. We
would.
agree. Thank you.
I'm trying to find out what the minimum is. Yeah, Bob, again, baked into that question, it's really begging the question. Hey, if somebody has this pattern of doing it, would you consider it a pattern?
Yeah, dude, listen, I
Yeah.
don't have
I'm trying to
any
figure out
weird,
when that pattern starts.
You act like I have some sort of checklist. Like, oh, they've done it X amount of times. Now I get to call them racist. It's nothing like that. It's just when they're doing it over and over again, every single video they do it. Yeah, I'm going to start calling it out. Because that's what they're doing.
All right. You definitely have the right to do it. I just think so could you tell me what the utility of using this pattern of behavior to label someone as opposed to like, oh my God, this guy keeps saying these racist things. Instead, you're just saying like there's this blanket pattern of behavior that makes them an ist or a phobe
I mean,
or
that's
whatever.
essentially the same thing. saying they keep on saying it and saying there's a
I
pattern of
would
behavior.
disagree.
It's the same thing. That's literally what it means. Well, I mean, I guess pattern behavior could also be like activities and stuff like that. So pattern behavior, I would say, would it be technically more correct? But
Yeah, I'd say if someone's pattern of behavior is like burning crosses or something, like that's definitely a pattern of racism. Like, I don't think anyone would deny that. But if somebody is a comedian and they tell a joke, one single joke that's offensive, it could be considered any way you want to call it offensive, where they could be any sort of phobe or ist, but they say it every night because they're a comedian. Is that now a pattern?
Yeah.
They say it every night. It's part of their set. So you're saying yes.
Yeah,
a comedian would then be an ist or a phobe because it's part of their set.
Yeah, no, if they're telling like racist jokes okay, no, let me say my piece. If they're telling racist jokes every night, you know, and people are saying, hey, that's racist, that's insensitive, you shouldn't be doing it, and they keep on doing it, they plow through, they say, fuck you, I don't care, I'm going to do my racist set. Yeah, that's racist. And odds are the person that's doing it is a racist.
So that's one joke. You now change it to they're doing a racist set. Like, I don't think anyone would disagree if their entire set is about like white superiority or whatever. Like, yeah, that's racist.
Well,
if they have like one off-color joke, and I said it doesn't have to be racist, it could be any sort of like phobic or anything. If they have like one joke, but they're saying it night after night because it's part of their set,
then it all depends on context. All depends on what the joke is. What
the context is, it's part of their set. They think it's funny.
That's no.
The target, like the punching up, punching down thing.
Well, yeah, essentially, but like it all depends. Like this is all context stuff you need to know. Like I would literally have to see that in the set to see how I felt about it, honestly, and you know, it all depends what other people think about it. But again, like, I mean, my instinct would be no on that, but like, that's not the type of people I usually label these things.
Well, it seems like you guys did that with Chrissy Mayer, where there was like 6 associations. At least 2 of them were Friday Night Tights.
Okay, so yeah, but Friday Night Tights like every week.
Okay, I mean
that's definitely a pattern. I mean, so just based on that, I could probably.
How many times would she have to go on Friday Night Tights before it's a pattern?
Dude.
So again, you're being really vague with it. You're saying like that's a pattern.
You act like I have a checklist. Like, oh no, she's done it 12 times. Now I have to call her this. It's not that. It's literally just she's hanging out with people who are absolutely racist and all that type of thing. And it speaks to her character that she's okay with that.
Again, she's a comedian. Like, I'm pretty sure if it's not going well with the crowd, she would then adjust. I don't know. I don't hear her like
those guys definitely have their own crowd. Do you think just having a crowd of people who are okay with that means it's okay?
I don't know how you'd get that. No, I'm saying like a comedian would adjust their jokes based off of the response of the crowd. I'm not saying because you have a crowd, anything is okay. Like that seems rather ridiculous, Bob.
Well,
I was not going there.
That seemed to be your implication that she has a crowd, so therefore.
No, I mean, that's the barometer for a comedian. If the crowd is actually like receptive to your joke, if you're getting laughter, it's successful. If it's bombing, you know, you would adjust your jokes. Like, you know, if you're just getting up there and just saying hate speech, that's like not making anyone laugh or anything like that. Like,
but what?
Yeah, I mean,
but what? If you're going up there and doing hate speech and you are getting them to laugh, does that mean that's forgivable then?
It really depends. So, like, again, I love roast comedy. A lot of those are literally like hateful jokes. A lot of it would be considered hate speech, but it's hilarious, and they know that that's what's going in. Like, it's no holds barred.
Not hate speech. Good roast comedy is making fun of a person. That's it.
Are you telling me that you've never heard an off-color like roast joke?
I've heard plenty of off-color.
I'm sorry, but
jokes,
sometimes there is hate speech. Like a lot of the roast battle. Have you ever heard roast battles? So it might not be like a celebrity roast, but like a roast battle. It's 2 people getting up there trying to roast each other. Usually it goes 3 rounds.
Again, we're talking about a very specific
A lot of those
context.
are hateful, but yeah, I am. And I'm saying, yeah, I think it would be okay
So
if
you're
the crowd
taking
is
a
laughing.
very specific context and saying, okay, so because X behavior is occasionally...
You asked me if it's okay if a comedian says hate speech. That is a context where it is.
Let me finish my point. You're saying, so because of this one specific example, it's okay to occasionally do an off-color joke. That means it's okay to do off-color jokes all the time. No matter what the context.
I never said that at all.
I mean, that's
I don't
your
know how you
implication
got
with that.
That it's okay to do it all the time.
That's your implication with that.
No. You literally asked me, is it okay for a comedian to do hate speech? And I mentioned a time when it is. Yeah, if you're in a roast battle,
that's
and
a
that
very
is,
specific
what's
situation.
acceptable.
And even then, like,
yeah. And then I was saying before
then,
when you kind of cut me
there
off.
Are limits?
Okay.
Would you agree that there are limits then?
In a roast battle?
Yeah.
No, like whatever is funny.
Really, there's no limits in a roast battle.
The idea of literally, that's usually how they start it all out. There are no holds barred. We are looking to be as offensive as possible. No pity claps is usually how most of the roast battles start.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was saying before, when you kind of cut me off, and I know that there's a little bit of a delay. If they were getting up on stage in just a normal comedy show and just, it's normal comedy, and then just in the middle of it, they go for like a hate-filled rant, and nobody laughs at it, yeah, I would say that's really bad comedy. But they probably shouldn't do that.
But what if they do laugh?
I don't know. It really depends on what it is, because again, it's context. So, like I said with the Patrice O'Neill quote, if 50% of the crowd is laughing, you are successful at comedy. If 50% of the crowd is upset, you're still successful. But if that ratio is way off, where the majority of the crowd is upset with you, it's probably not successful. I wouldn't see any reason why that would be a successful comedy bit.
Okay, but
again, I'd have to see the context, because I have heard a very hateful joke in like a roast battle. Totally acceptable. I would have never laughed at it if I heard somebody call somebody that on the street. Mm-hmm. So unexpected, it took me by surprise, made me laugh.
So let's say you have somebody who just makes YouTube videos that are hate-filled. Literally hate-filled YouTube videos. They put them up every
That
week.
seems like it would be against the terms of services, and then they would be canceled off of YouTube. That seems like it's part of the agreement that we have with YouTube, that we will not make hate-filled content.
YouTube doesn't really regulate its own self because it makes money off it. And number two, these guys are usually smart enough to kind of just skirt around it. They push the edges, but they don't usually quite. They kind of know the line, but they push it right to the line. But they do hate-filled stuff, and they bring down, they essentially just say bigoted stuff, and they have an audience that eats it up and loves it. Does that mean that should be acceptable?
What do you mean by acceptable? Like, do you mean that they shouldn't be allowed to do it? I'm not quite sure what you mean by acceptable.
No, I'm saying, do you think that should be called out for what it is?
What do you mean by called out or acceptable? Like, do you mean shout them down while they're on stage?
I mean simply doing kind of essentially what we do and pointing out that, hey, this is bigoted stuff. They do this all the time, and this is a problem.
So I think pointing it out would not be the worst thing in the world, but I think that this pattern of behavior is, again, not beneficial in any way. Have you heard of the laundry list fallacy?
Laundry list fallacy? No, not off the top of my head.
So just because you have a big, long list, so unfortunately, I think Scott Adams came up with it, so I'm sure a lot of people don't like it because of, who created it.
So I realized, as you know, I've been identifying as black for a while, years now, because I like to be on the winning team. But as of today, I'm going to re-identify as white because I don't want to be a member of a hate group.
But I've also heard it with like religion and stuff. Just because you have a long list of not necessarily convincing good evidence doesn't mean that list of half evidence suddenly becomes now a full case. Bad evidence is still bad evidence. Just because you don't have we're
not actually
cases
talking about bad evidence. We're talking about things we know they've done.
So with Chrissy Mayer, it's 4 jokes and 6 associations. That doesn't seem
Well, I
like
mean,
good
you're
evidence that she's a
trivializing-
phobe or a racist.
Again, you're trivializing.
What am I trivializing?
The associations. You're saying 6 associations. We're talking about repeat associations.
Yeah,
repeatedly
but
appearing on these shows.
2 of them,
many times.
2 of them are because of who she works with. So she is on Friday Night Tights was one of the associations. Gavin McGinnis was on Friday Nights was a second association. So because she was on one show and because they've had a guest one time that she was on there, that counts as 2 different associations for you guys. And then also the same thing with Kumiya. You're saying because she has a show on Kumiya's network, that's again like the association with her.
I like Friday Night Tights is hosted by Jeremy Griggs and Gary Buechler. They are absolutely bigoted pieces of shit.
He's a great supporting character and a supporting actor, which is what Diego Luna should be. But of course, Diego Luna has the diversity aspect, and they're pushing identity politics with this. They 100% are.
So, yeah, no, just every time she's on that show, that would count.
Yeah, I don't know if I could agree with you. The content of theirs that I've seen doesn't come off that way to me.
Really?
I can understand a little bit about what you're saying with like
tell me
the
about
MCU. I don't think I would use that term MCU.
Media is admitting that the MCU exists. The MCU Stage 4 is as follows. No such thing as the MCU. There is no MCU, but maybe there should be. You're bitching about the term MCU.
But are you saying that you don't understand what they're saying at all?
Let's recap briefly. First, there wasn't an MCU. Disney, Marvel, and Kevin Feige created the MCU. I just gave it a slogan that was supposed to be a joke that ended up sticking because it's the MCU.
By MCU.
The MCU? I've heard all types of excuses, but I know what it actually means.
Probably has the most even approach to the MCU theory that's very much a reality. But as I said, this isn't necessarily superhero fatigue as much as it's bad movie and MCU fatigue. No, I'm not anticipating any hard-hitting questions, but let's hear from the man himself after a year of MCU failures.
So what does it actually mean?
MCU? It's just essentially it's a way to degrade Marvel for having more women characters, and having more and attacking something just for having more women characters is sexism.
So MCU is just sexism. That's what they mean. Like,
yeah.
The origins of the MCU, of course, come from the relatively new comics. And that was the inception of the MCU. And then the prelude film of the MCU, The Wasp and Ant-Man.
Essentially, when they're saying it, they're saying women are inferior.
Yeah, and I've never heard a good defense of it.
So what is the MCU? The MCU is ridiculous gender swaps. So that's the MCU casting female writers and directors and not hiring them.
Maybe you will hit me with something, but I've never heard a good defense of it.
I mean, it's not something that I use, but when I've heard them describe it, they're not describing it as like women bad. So,
but I will say Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a fitting season finale to the MCU. And how do they follow that up? By killing him off screen and making the MCU a household name. Then it's a race to have the women. Admittedly, it is appropriate that the poster child for SJW Marvel that helped bury the publisher is in the season finale for the MCU.
Boo,
really?
Women.
Really? Because
I've heard it.
Why? So why do they use it
that's
as a
not what I've
criticism
heard.
then? Why is it used as a criticism then?
So again, I'm not here to like defend all of them, but from what I've heard, the description of it is when you actually like break down Phase 4, like the majority of the superheroes are female. It seems like there is one direction that it's going.
Wakanda Forever, or Women Forever, perfectly sums up the MCU and the current problems with Disney Marvel. And about that synergy between Marvel Comics and the MCU, well, like I said, it has never been closer. Ingratitude that is ingrained into the Marvel Comics staff has bled up to the MCU because the ingratitude continues, and it also seems that Kevin Feige has gone to the Tim Miller School of Film Promotion.
So?
That's the definition that I've heard, and that's why they're calling it MCU.
So we are well on our way into the MCU and a couple of hours away from the beginning of Marvel Phase 4. But there's no guarantee things are going to get better, but we are guaranteed for at least a year of the MCU, possibly more. Black Widow is on track to make $140 million worldwide. I want to talk about sexism in the MCU. Thor isn't here to be easy on the eyes for you.
Flip too hard, damn it!
But so
Things that were traditionally male that, again, kind of possibly alienating your existing audience.
And in the next MCU film I'm going to see, our titular character, Thor, isn't the king of Asgard. He's playing second fiddle to Valkyrie. Let me know when you start noticing the patterns. And I know, of course, there's no such thing as the MCU.
You get used to it.
And now the end is near, and the MCU is about to face its final curtain. Unfortunately, it's taking the rest of the superheroes with them.
So at the expense, trying to gain a new audience, possibly at the expense of your old audience, is what I've heard people call MCU.
Well, if the old
Again,
audience,
it's not a term that I normally
I'll hit you with something whopping. If the old audience was capable of 100% sustaining them and they were comfortable with that, they wouldn't do it.
I don't know if that's necessarily true.
And
I mean,
I don't want to get
so why
too
haven't
far
they
off
gender
the beaten-
swapped? Okay.
I don't want to get too far off the beaten path because, like, at the end of the day, my take on it is
fair enough. I
don't
didn't come
care
to
if
argue
they're
MCU.
introducing more women characters. They're using it as a criticism. If they were saying, "Hey, the MCU is here and I love it. I love more women characters," I'd be like, "Oh, okay." But that's not what they use it. They use it as a criticism.
I don't know that they're necessarily using it as a criticism.
What does this have to do with the MCU, you ask, dear viewer? Well, quite a bit, and we'll get into that. Now, we know just a couple of months ago, Kevin Feige, the head of the MCU and the architect of its current destruction, which no one asked for and no one wants, which proves that Kevin Feige is prioritizing the MCU that he created.
That's absolutely how
I've
they're
heard them
using it.
say. So could you not be using it as an observation? Like, hey, this thing that was formerly this way has now been changed this way. The shorthand for it could be MCU.
Poster child for what was known as the SJW Marvel era, which were the early origins of the MCU, is being killed off. And then there's the MCU, where she made her first live-action debut in the D+ series Miss Marvel. And she won't be dying in the MCU anytime soon.
I don't know that they're necessarily using it as criticism, more for the shorthand of a notion.
So that's just, it's shorthand? That's such a weird take. No, it's obviously being used as criticism. And I think, again, you're just being super vague about it.
Again, I think that's a lot of mind reading that you're doing, Bob, because I've listened to a lot of them describe what they're talking about with MCU, and it doesn't seem to be, I hate women.
As a matter of fact, I think the MCU will die before her. So what does the MCU have to do with stockholders suing and the current slate of the MCU?
Okay,
and I feel like you saying that it's sexist.
Hit me with an argument. Hit me with an argument that will turn me around.
For what, MCU?
Yeah.
Again, like, it's not something that I use, but when I've heard people talk about it, they're not saying boo women bad.
When did this all begin? What are the origins of the MCU? Well, they're mixed in with the origins of identity politics being infused in Marvel Comics. The MCU Phase 4, which we will now call Stage 4, has not been doing very well, and everything we have witnessed has been diminishing returns. This is an intellectual property in entropy. I also think Black Panther, along with the Wasp and Ant-Man, and yes, I call it the Wasp and Ant-Man, were precursors for things to come with the MCU.
They're saying,
that's
hey, all
the
these formerly male characters are now all changed to females, and this Phase 4 of Marvel seems to be predominantly female-based. That's what I've heard.
Yes, and they're criticizing it for that. Like, what do you think of the criticism saying make Marvel male again?
So, I don't know. That seemed to be a joke from that Chris Gore guy. Like, I only learned about that from your guys' stream. And even he, apparently, according to your guys' stream, said that was just a joke. I don't know why anyone fell for that or whatever. I don't know. He even seemed to take that back the next day. So
well, hey, I mean, they made t-shirts.
So, I don't know. I've never heard anyone other than that say it. Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of people have really bad t-shirts. I mean, I've
No,
Come on, you have to have
these
seen like
guys
some
push
really
it.
bad T-shirts before.
So yeah, no, that's fine. And if you saw somebody wearing that T-shirt, what would you think?
I don't know, that they probably want more males back in Marvel comics or Marvel movies, more specifically.
Mm-hmm. And what would be their problem with the current level of males in the Marvel movies? Because that's another issue. Okay, so last year Marvel movies. Actually, 2022 and 2023. What are the Marvel movies this year? Okay, so over the past 2 years, the Marvel movies we have: Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and The Marvels. Those are our 6 MCU movies this year. How many of those star white men?
I don't know, Bob. Like, I honestly haven't been keeping up with Marvel too much. They kind of lost me after Endgame. But
all right, so so I will let you know. 4 of those star white men. 4 of 6.
Okay.
So
I just know the upcoming stuff. So phase 4. So that would have been phase 3, right?
Nope.
Or am I?
Nope.
Do I have my time frame off?
Nope.
Okay.
That's phase 4 and 5.
Like I said, I haven't really been following since then. So I'm just kind of, going off of what I've heard. This isn't something that I've done a lot of research into. Just when you mentioned MCU, it's just telling you, like, I've heard people describe it a different way. It's not boo women bad.
A wonderful conclusion to Phase 4. It celebrates women as the fiercest protectors of all. Oh, MCU. Oh, and we'll get to Hot Girl. Oh, I'm sorry. The Scarlet Scarab. And yes, indeed, we have another entry into the MCU Marvel Phase 4. And she got the big hurrah moments because this is the latest entry into the MCU.
So when 4 of 6 movies star white men, what is the point of calling it the MCU?
So, again, I believe those people who actually use that term, which, again, for like the 5th time, I don't. But when those people are using it, they are mentioning that, like, hey, all of these characters are now replaced by females. Like, all of the MCU shows on Disney, practically all of them are female-led now, if I remember right. I guess not Falcon or
Hawkeye.
Winter Soldier.
Well,
There's
Hawkeye
one other one that Hawkeye is now. And like I said, I haven't been following it too closely. Like, if you want to have a debate about it, I would literally have to do some research and find out if I even want to take up that position.
Okay, I mean,
I've just kind of heard other people talk about it, and then I've heard you say.
And I just think it's interesting that
you brought up You brought up Friday Night Tights,
I brought up
and I was
Gary
just saying,
Buechler,
but what you're calling them ists and phobes about, were you brought up MCU?
Yeah.
On Gary
MCU
before.
is.
So that's all I was saying is like,
sexist.
Hey,
like,
I don't use that, but that's not what I've heard them say. The reasons that you're saying seems to imply intent that is like,
again,
I hate women. Women are not as good as men. When I haven't heard them say that, they're just saying, hey, this isn't the Marvel that I like. I don't like this change.
No, they're
that appears to be what I've.
But they're specifically saying this isn't the Marvel I like because there's women in it. That's the whole point of saying that.
Yeah, I don't necessarily know their argument, but I know I haven't heard them say women are worse than men or they're bad.
You just hear the phrase MCU,
I've just heard this,
and the entire criticism with saying the whole point of saying that is criticizing it for having women in it.
So that seems to be an intention that you're putting on there. It could just be, I don't like this current direction where females are raised up above. Not necessarily raised up above, like you mentioned with that breakdown. Apparently, there's a lot of white males in it still. Just a lot of these former characters, are now female-led.
Okay, so
it could just be that they don't necessarily like the change.
So, do you think when they say MCU, they mean it in a positive way?
I don't want to mind read and tell you that they're saying that it's a negative thing. I assume that they're not in favor of it is why they're saying it.
The Hawkeye finale coming out on the same week as Spider-Man No Way Home really shines a light on the failures of the MCU, and it shows you what success really looks like. Now, a lot of people out there, including yours truly, have argued that the MCU Phase 4 is directionless, but I have to say, I think they've set out and done exactly what they wanted to do. Vandalize all the previous characters so they can bring in the all-new, all-different Marvel, and you're all going to love them because everything's a mantle, right? Right? No. 2023, and now it's being released in November. Quite frankly, I was disappointed every time because I am more excited for this film than any other in the MCU, and Christmas has come early for content creators.
But I don't know that I could go that extra mile with you and say it's because they think women are worse than men or women bad.
Okay, so I kind of want to stress, because this has been the whole conversation, like, I feel like I'm making fairly good points and fairly clear points, and you are going out of your way to either not understand or to act like I'm being vague, when I feel like it's being fairly clear.
Woman the accuser. If there's any men left in the MCU, they're about to get space Me Too. The MCU is no longer dying. The MCU is dead. Even the Access Media has called out Marvel for having a directionless Phase 4, but I would argue they have done exactly what they set out to do. The MCU segment of the content exemplifies, I think even better than Captain Marvel, the hero's journey, and I don't think there's a single scene that shows just how far the MCU has fallen into MCU than this.
I feel like your whole strategy here is
it's
just
not
essentially
super
act vague.
clear. Bob, I would put that right back at you. Every time I've been asking you about the pattern, you keep saying, well, yeah, if they keep doing it repeatedly, it's okay. What does that mean? Well, if they do it over and over again, what does that mean? That is super vague. And then all your hypotheticals that you've given me are, hey, if they do this every single time, if they're always doing this, it's like, yeah, if they're always doing that, yes, by definition, that would be a pattern.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out when that pattern forms. I don't feel like it's
that's
fair for you to say that I've been vague. Can you tell me one point that I've been vague on? And I would love to clarify with you.
Literally, that whole argument there is a vagary. You're just trying to add vagary to this where it doesn't, like, when I'm saying they're always doing it over and over again, you're like, oh, but when does
Bob,
it start?
I'm being as clear as I can be. And let me stress this again. I think using this pattern as some sort of standard to then castigate somebody as some sort of ist or phobe, I think that pattern has no utility. I feel like you could use that against anybody and call them an ist or a phobe.
So let me ask you.
For that reason, I feel like that is much worse than actually going off of good evidence.
Well, so maybe we went, like, we've been at this for almost 2 hours now, so maybe we need to back it up a little bit and get some stuff cleared up, because let me ask you this. What would it take for you to call somebody a racist or a transphobe or anything like that?
I would have to see them do something undeniably racist or undeniably transphobic. And then I'd say, hey, that's really racist or that's really transphobic.
So would it only take one for you?
Maybe. It kind of depends on what it is. Like if somebody says a racist joke, no, that wouldn't be enough for me to label them racist. And in your previous content, you've said the same thing. You've said, like, between good friends, you would have no issue with it. You've never done it before, but you wouldn't see any problem with it.
Okay.
So it feels like we have the same standard right there.
Yeah. So I guess the question would be, what would be this extreme example?
If I saw someone burning a cross or something, or like,
that's
putting on a hood.
That's a super extreme example, yes.
Yes. That would be 100% that guy's a racist.
Well, what about less? Like, does it have to be a burning cross?
Okay, if I saw somebody doing something where they're literally, if I saw somebody literally discriminating against somebody, like, they have a place for rent or something, they need it rented to anybody, they refuse to do it to a person of color, yeah, I'd say that's racist.
Well, again,
if I see somebody literally...
Let me get to my point. So let's say they aren't saying, I'm not going to rent, like obviously saying I'm not going to rent to black people, that's racist. But what if they say, I'm not going to rent to people named Tyrone?
I don't know. Like, I do have certain connotations with certain names. Again, not like, names like Tyrone or anything like that, but like, I had a bully when I was a kid named Josh. That name always kind of just like sets the hair up on the back of my neck. I don't know. I think people have weird
So
patterns.
do you think
I don't
that
know.
that's right though? Do you think it'd be right for you to go ahead?
No, I think that is a bias that I know that
Yeah.
I have, and I'm actively trying not to be biased against people named Josh.
Mhm.
But I definitely know that, like, you know, I would probably not favor somebody named Josh, but I'm trying to change that. I actually do have quite a few friends
well, I
now
mean,
named
that's
Josh.
the thing.
Yeah, I got.
If you notice you're exhibiting racist behaviors and you're trying to inhibit those, then I cheer you on. I support that. That is a
So
good thing.
I don't think that's a racist behavior, but when you mentioned the name Tyrone, like,
yeah, Tyrone
obviously the
would be
implication
typically a
is that
black
that
name,
is
yes.
Yeah, so that's the implication. So I don't know that I would necessarily condemn somebody as a racist because of that example. And that's why I brought up, like, you know, I don't know that a name is enough. But again, if they saw this Tyrone guy and they said, hey, I took a look at him, not renting to him because of, you know, the color of his skin or because of what race he is, yeah, of course that would be racism, but I don't know that just not liking a name. So again, this kind of goes back to that resume study, because Tyrone was one of those names on that resume study. Again, there's been like 4 subsequent studies after that. They kind of prove that there are different names. It's kind of more of like, what would you call it? Like your place in society. Like they also did like Cletus and stuff, like names like that, and it kind of has different connotations. If you really do want to, you know, go through those studies, I'd be down. Like, let's actually go through them. But that's not really why I'm here to debate today.
I'm not here to go over the studies either. I'm bringing these up as just, you know, hypotheticals.
Yeah, but when you bring up that name, I couldn't condemn somebody based solely off of that because there could be additional factors. You know, they might have a prejudice, but not because of the color of the skin, but because of a former interaction with a Tyrone or something
I
like that.
don't even know if I would necessarily call that person a racist, but I would definitely say the fact that they are discouraging that name, that is a racist behavior.
I don't know how.
Oh, did we lose him? I don't know. I'm getting a little discouraged here. He keeps on going super vague, and it gets annoying.
Sorry about that, Bob. I think my internet just cut out.
Okay,
Are
but
we
you're back.
back?
I was semi-expecting I have to restart Discord. Okay, so I have no idea what.
Sorry, I think for some reason my internet just went out. I don't remember myself. I was talking for like 30 seconds, then realized the internet was out.
Mm-hmm. All right, but like again, so you see.
Sorry, I do remember actually.
Okay.
Sorry, I do remember what I was saying. It was about the name. Like, I just don't know if I could follow you down that road that it's discrimination based off of not liking the name Tyrone, when again, anything could have previously made them have some sort of bias against the name Tyrone, which doesn't necessarily have to do with like someone's race. So I couldn't condemn someone as a racist based solely off of your example of not renting to somebody named Tyrone.
I mean, here's the deal. I feel like I'm giving you like, you know, hypotheticals and examples or you know, specific activities by people. And then you almost seem to go through do backflips and jump through hoops to try to explain how that's not bigoted behavior. And
how that would be mind reading to say that he's doing it just because of this. I wouldn't know the reason, so I wouldn't condemn them.
I don't care about the reason behind it. Number one, the Tyrone thing, I'm just bringing that up as a racist behavior. Like I said, I don't even know if I'd qualify as that person as a racist, since they probably are just doing it subconsciously anyway. But let's go back to like the YouTubers who are constantly making bigoted content. You seem to be doing backflips trying to explain, oh, I can't read their mind, which you are 100% correct on. I can't read their mind. All I can do is tell you what they're saying. And what they're saying is bigoted stuff.
I don't know. Okay, can you give me examples of the bigoted stuff that you're saying? Like the previous examples that I've heard is saying like MCU.
Obviously, they're doing lots of videos criticizing Spider-Verse for having a trans flag in it, saying protect trans kids. They're going nuts over the Budweiser stuff right now. Yeah.
Okay, so not supporting Budweiser when again it could be
I don't care.
Hey, I feel like this is alienating their core audience. Like, I don't know that they're necessarily bigoted against trans people because they're not supporting Budweiser right now.
If Budweiser,
again, you're not buying Bud right now.
No,
but neither of us are. So are we participating in a boycott or?
It's all in how you do it. Like if they're saying I'm boycotting it just because they have a trans rep, yeah, that is kind of that's not a good reason. But if they're boycotting it because they don't like Bud, then yeah, fine, I don't care. Context matters. But let's go back to the Spider-Verse example. Like all the people are screaming about the trans flag that's in Spider-Verse trailer for less than a second. What would you call that?
I don't know. I haven't heard. Like I said, I don't watch a lot of their content, so I didn't know. I don't know in what context is their trans flag. Is it trying to say is it like in place of the American flag, or is it like what is the
it's a trans flag in the background that says "Protect Trans Kids." You can barely see it. It's in less than 1 second of Spider-Verse trailer, and they're yelling about it.
I don't know. I wouldn't yell about it, but I'm not sure. I don't know the context of it. I've never.
Oh, I just told you the full context.
Argue about it. I understand that you've given me the context as you see it, but I don't know that I necessarily trust your framing of it, that they're just yelling because they've seen a trans flag somewhere in a cartoon.
Ryan Cannell.
I don't know.
Well, it's not even in a cartoon. It's in a trailer. Ryan Cannell did a video and Eric July did a video. I'm sure more of them done videos by now, but they've all done videos essentially screaming about how this is, this is pushing an agenda, all their usual talking points.
I don't know. I'm not sure if I quite believe your framing of Ryan Cannell. I saw so the way that I was introduced to you and Dane was through your debate with Adam and Sitch. And you particularly brought up that Ryan Cannell video, the one where he's talking about Batman, the Batman, and he was talking about the characters in there. And the way that you framed it didn't seem to match up with what I actually saw when I went to Ryan's video and I watched it. I wanted to see it for myself. Like, is he really just upset that there are black people in this movie? That was the way that you framed it. That was not what he said at all. So I'm not sure if I fully buy your framing of what you're saying, that they're being upset about this trans flag is.
Okay.
So I would want to see the context for myself.
Give me a few moments. I will pull that up immediately.
Okay.
Here, I want to pull up the Batman thing, because I actually want...
Oh, okay.
So we can...
So I'm not saying that I support Ryan's, position here, but I'm saying that it's not the framing that you put on it. I just want to make that clear. I'm not here again to defend Kennel, but
on what exactly he says.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So I have a segment of the Ryan Cannell video. Can you see it?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right.
The rest of the three other major players that I would consider overall moral good people were, you had Jim Gordon, who's black in this. You had Catwoman, who's not white in this. And then you had the mayor, who's a black woman. Again, very much on the nose for current day Hollywood. Did not like that. Took a little bit off the score for me, to be honest.
So overall, he's saying he liked it, but he's taking points off it because black Commissioner Gordon, black Catwoman. What do you think of that?
So that is not what I heard him say at all. So you're saying that it's only because of black Commissioner Gordon and black Catwoman that he took points off of that?
That's what he just said.
No, he just said the only positive white characters in there were Batman and Alfred.
Well,
that's not saying that. So you do understand that that is different than the way that you just framed it, right?
Dude, he literally just said, here, let's get this back so it's not as laggy. Essentially, he's saying he's taking points off because there's black Commissioner Gordon and black Catwoman that are positive characters.
So that's not what he said in its entirety. So he didn't say because it's black Catwoman and black Commissioner Gordon, he's taking points off. Do you want to play it again? That's literally not what he said. He was saying the only positive white character, which again, I don't agree with him, but the way that you're framing it is not what he's actually saying.
Here, let me see.
He was saying the only positive white characters.
You had Bruce Wayne, Batman, and you had Alfred. Those are the only two good white people. The rest of the three other major players that I would consider like overall like moral good people were, you had Jim Gordon, who's black in this. You had Catwoman, who's not white in this. And then you had the mayor, who's a black woman. Again, very much on the nose for current day Hollywood. Did not like that. Took a little bit off the score for me, to be honest.
Yeah. So it seems like you were only taking the last part of that, like those last few lines.
Well, I
there
do
was
feel
black
like the last
Catwoman,
point of it
there was
kinda
black
gets to
Commissioner
it.
Gordon. Okay. Well, I feel like, again, when you're talking about context, you leaving out the first half of that statement completely changes it. That's what I mean by reframing it. You're not bringing up the part where he talks about the only good, morally good characters, the only ones that are white, are these two, Batman and Alfred.
Okay,
and that's why he's taking the points off.
So let me ask
He's
you,
not
how
so
many,
in
how
totality.
Many, how many good white characters should a movie have?
I don't know. It's not my point that I'm making. Like,
well, you're defending
again,
it,
I'm not here.
You're defending that point.
No, I'm literally. So I set it up before this, and I said it numerous times during it. Again, I'm not defending his point. I'm just saying you framed it incorrectly. You did it dishonestly, where you're only taking the last half of that statement and saying that's all.
Well, the last half would
you
be
mentioned
the big
context
point.
matters before, and you're not mentioning the first half of that.
Well, that's the
that
thing.
he's
the
not
first half
upset
doesn't
just
change it.
because there's. So it does, though, Bob.
How?
That's why, well, if you were to say any given statement and I just take the last few words or cherry pick a certain section of it, is that the same thing as quoting you?
I'm not going to play the whole thing, but if the couple of words represent what I'm saying, then yes, that is fine.
So you'd be fine with somebody like cherry picking or just taking like certain quotes of yours and then saying, okay, because of this, that means that you're racist, or I don't know, any way that you could take a certain quote out of context, you're okay with that, and then that could be part of your pattern.
No, well, what I'm saying is that if that's a good representation, what he's saying there is that, hey, there's good white characters and there's a couple good black characters, and because of those good black characters, I'm going to take a couple points off the movie.
So no, So again, you're not taking into account the first part that he said. That
he said there's a couple good white characters. How many good white characters does this movie need to have to be good?
I have no idea to meet his standard. Again, it's not an argument that I'd make. That's why I set this up numerous times before. That no, I'm literally just saying, hey, the way that you frame that, I don't know if I'd take your word on how somebody is offensive or what kind of pattern they have.
He's literally
I would want to know
because there's black characters in the movie.
So that seems so uncharitable.
No,
you literally just went through. No,
his old
hey, Bob,
argument
for 1 second. Sorry, you just went through and you just read that, and then you're saying that now he's just upset because there are black characters.
Because
that seems so uncharitable. You literally just read the transcript. We just watched the video. Yes. He did not literally just say because there's black people, I'm taking points
because
off.
Literally his whole point was, if Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman, and the mayor were white, I wouldn't take points off.
No, Bob.
That's what he said.
That would be only taking. No, he said that. So again, I don't think that that's a charitable way of interpreting what he actually said there.
So, like, how would you interpret it then?
I would interpret it as a really weird take, but he appears to be taking points off because they race swapped a bunch of characters, and what he sees in with that race swap
he doesn't
is that
mention
they have. Hold on. There's one other section to it that the only two morally good characters that are white are Batman and Alfred.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this isn't like an argument that I would want to take on or that I even think has a lot of merit to it. But that's the argument that he's making. The argument that you're making is he was taking points off strictly because there were black people as Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman, and the mayor. That doesn't seem to be what he's saying.
No, because literally
my entire argument is you are taking him out of context.
Dude, Like, what he's saying is that if those characters were white, he won't be taking points off for that.
I don't see that as him saying he would not be taking points off if they were not, or if they were white. I see him as saying,
and
so I guess we have a different interpretation of what he's saying, but I think it's super uncharitable for you to just take the last half of his statement and say that's all that he's saying.
Dude, I read
and
the
then
whole
say,
transcript.
literally because he said
the same meaning.
Yeah, and you keep leaving out the first half of it where he's talking about
I
the
read
moral.
the transcript. It's still the same meaning.
Yeah, and then you keep taking off that first part of it and only focusing on the second part of that statement.
You keep on saying I took it off. Yeah, I took it off when I played it. The video was choppy anyway, so I just read the transcript. I read the whole transcript for you. It still doesn't change what he's saying.
No, but you literally said those words, and now you're not going with those words. That the two moral good characters that happen to be white, that was his problem, apparently. That there should have been more decent white people. I don't know.
You think that's a bad
again,
argument?
it's not an argument that I would make.
So
I wouldn't make that argument.
So you think it's a bad argument?
But I don't think his argument is the same as the argument that you're putting forth. That's my entire argument.
Well, I'm pretty much literally just interpreting what he's saying. He's saying Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman,
I think
and the
we're gonna
mayor
have
are
to
black.
agree to disagree on this. I think we're kind of looping on this.
Yeah, no, because
Either way, it's not an argument that I'm like willing to die on the hill for. I don't think so, Bob. I feel like I could put that back at you, and that's why I'm saying we're looping on this. I think we're both being somewhat hard-headed on this, that I don't interpret his words in the way that you're interpreting them, and I don't think that either of us are going to agree on that.
So, I just don't under.
It's a weird argument, and that's why it's like I wouldn't make that argument. I can't tell what's going on in his head. I think it's a weird thing to say, hey, people of a certain color should be a certain morality.
So
that's weird. I would never make that argument.
Yeah, well, don't you think that's kind of a racist argument?
It could be. Again, like I'd have to kind of know what's going on. I really don't know anything about Ryan Cannell. I've kind of seen him.
Well, I mean,
I don't know what you want to call it, like peripherally on the net.
I've seen a lot of Ryan Cannell.
The main thing that I saw of his content was when you guys mentioned this particular thing in that debate, and I wanted to see it. Like, really, is there this racist of a guy out there? And I didn't see him say what you said he said.
Well, I mean, we just went over the transcript right there. He's saying we're
looping back on this, Bob.
Exactly.
I think we're disagreeing on what exactly
it's weird
he said.
talking to, because it's like talking to a brick wall. Like, he is saying he is complaining about Commissioner Gordon, Catwoman, and the mayor being black. That is
so. What was the prior statement to that? Because it seems to be all in one, as far as I can see it.
Yeah, no, we could throw that on too. He's saying Alfred and Batman are the only good white characters, and then the other good characters are black. I don't care about the ratio of good white to black characters.
So he didn't mention the only good characters are black. I didn't hear him mention anything about good characters are black. He mentioned some race swaps, and he mentioned the only two good, morally good characters that were white were these.
You brought the race swaps.
So I don't know.
Explain how the mayor's a race swap character.
Traditionally, the mayor. I don't know anything about the mayor in Batman. Sorry, I thought you meant Commissioner
the mayor
Gordon.
was an
Traditionally,
original.
I think he was
an original
one.
character created for this movie. I mean, there are.
Yeah, I have no
Batman
idea. I was talking about Catwoman and Commissioner Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this isn't an argument that I would make. That's why I'm not defending it. I just don't think the way that you framed it is accurate. No, I was saying I don't think the way that you have framed it is accurate.
God, this is
this is looping because, again, it's not my argument that I'm making. I don't know who this Ryan Cannell guy is. But I looked at the words that he said versus what you said he said, and I did not see it being the same.
So
I saw a great disparity where you keep cutting off the first half of what he says and then saying he's taking off points just because these characters are black.
Because he is taking off points because those characters are black.
He also mentioned in the beginning of that statement that these are the only characters that are morally good that are white. Again, it seems like a weird argument, but if you're only focusing on that last half, you're leaving out context. You are, by definition, not being fully honest or charitable with that take.
Would you call that take racist?
I don't know. It seems like it could be borderline. It seems really weird to be saying, hey, I need more people of this color to be of this moral stature. It's not an argument that I would make.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't want to call him racist based off of this one take. It seems sketchy to me.
Well, I mean, I've seen more takes of him.
But like, I couldn't condemn him on that.
Here's the deal. Like,
and I would love to actually go over any of those takes if you want to, but
yeah, if that was actually
I don't know.
his
The way that you
take
framed this,
I wouldn't be so quick to condemn him, but he has lots of takes. Yes.
Okay. Based on the way that you frame this and that we've had to go this far on this, I don't know that I would fully take your framing of his takes. I would have to look at them individually. I'd have to see, the context for it. But again, the whole reason why I wanted to have this discussion wasn't to try and defend like Ryan Cannell or any member of the Fandom Menace or Friday Night Tights, whatever groups they're in. I don't really watch those shows. I've caught them occasionally. I didn't notice anything bigoted, but again, I'm not like, watching it with a fine-tooth comb or something. It was kind of on in the background. I don't know. I'm not here to defend them. I wanted to find out about your standard for which you levy these allegations of being a racist, being a transphobe, being a bigot. And it seems to be this pattern of behavior. But then I don't seem to get any sort of definition of that from you other than if they're constantly doing it and they do it in every video. And it's like, yeah, okay, that definitely is a pattern. But at what point does that pattern start? And I still don't seem to have gotten an answer from you on where it actually starts.
What would you consider a concrete definition of a pattern?
So so I don't know why I would define what your, method of calling somebody a bigot would be. I don't know what you mean by pattern. To me, a pattern would be something that's repeated and obvious.
Yes.
I don't know exactly what you mean by it. So what do you mean by pattern?
I mean, I've already defined it to you multiple times. It's these guys doing the same
Could you do it again? Because I hear you. So what does that mean? So that seems to be as vague as can be. If somebody is doing something over and over again.
Yes.
Cool. Is that like 5 times?
Dude, so you're looking for like some sort of specific number. What number would satisfy you?
I wouldn't make this form of, standard to label someone a bigot. So I don't know. I would actually have to see their actions and see how they treat people, see what they put out there into the world.
Well,
but I'm not saying that this pattern makes it. So I don't know, Bob. But I'm asking you, since you're saying your standard is this pattern, what is the minimum that constitutes a pattern?
Well, I mean, that's just a weird thing to ask for, like a minimum. So listen, I've seen these
it's a weird thing to have this pattern of behavior as opposed to like, here's the evidence against this person.
I've seen it repeatedly from these guys in like almost every single video they do. They do a different type of bigotry in pretty much every single video.
So you keep going to these guys, which I'm not familiar with, but you keep like going away from this like Chrissy Mayer thing, which you titled the stream over. So can we get back to like
that's
that?
Who you brought up.
It was 4 jokes and 6 associations.
Okay.
So what part of that is a pattern? If she had 2 associations and 4 jokes, would that be a pattern?
Down to this, but it's not even like it's just 6 associations because it's repeated.
Because I don't understand your pattern,
almost,
Bob.
Like I believe she's a co-host on Friday Night Tights, so she's on like almost every single one with Gary Buechler and Jeremy Griggs, who are definitely bigots. And they have a wide cadre of bigots on that panel, and she doesn't challenge
I don't know
them,
why you
she just laughs along with them.
So if you're on a panel with somebody, so like, okay, for instance, you were on Sitch and Adam's show, and Adam said that he is a sexist. He did clarify it after that he really meant he's okay with sexist jokes. You guys had previously in the stream all agreed that men and women should be treated equally, that he didn't say that, women are lesser than men or anything like that, but he seemed to be okay with sexist jokes. So
why
is that now a pattern of behavior?
Why didn't he specify that?
Because some jokes are funny. I gotta be honest, like some jokes are funny, and when I got a chuckle when he did that stupid sandwich joke. I wasn't expecting it, but it subverted my expectations, and I gave a little chuckle to it. So that seems to be why he's okay with sexism. Why did he wait till
after the stream and say that though? Why when I specifically?
No, he said it during the stream.
Okay, well, I don't remember that.
So you guys had talked. Please, hey Bob, Have you watched that debate since you guys actually
Yes,
did it?
I actually just added it. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't see it up on your channel, but I don't know. There's this. So first off, there's a YouTuber out there
God, you're
who's
such
really
an
amazing.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I learned about you guys. I'm a fan of debate, so I really enjoyed that debate. It kind of stuck with me in my head. And then there's this YouTuber, that darn Kidda, who's amazing. She did a breakdown of your guys' debate. It is really cool. It's a conversation map. So it literally maps out every single place that you guys went in that conversation. If you get a chance, I would really watch that. I think you'd get some great utility for the way that pattern, that conversation actually branched out. Sorry, I was calling it a pattern because it looks really cool when you actually see the conversation tree out there. It looks like a pattern. I wasn't meaning to say, like pattern of behavior type deal. But I would highly recommend you check that out. Anyone in your audience, it really is quite amazing when you see that conversation broken down.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I did essentially see it broken down, and yeah. I do think it's interesting because, like, that's primarily their form of debate. Like, they argue this nebulous stuff. And that's kind of, I feel like you're trying to go for, like, a junior level Adam Sitch thing going on here.
Junior level?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, okay. I don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, I highly
you
respect
like to
their
straddle the middle
debate.
ground. You're not going to take any, like, side, but you're going to criticize this side a lot for some reason.
I've fully taken a side. I think that this pattern of behavior has no utility. I feel like you could label anybody an ist or a foe based off of this pattern.
But you keep on saying this pattern of behavior, but then you're like, I don't understand what you mean by pattern behavior. So do you understand what I mean by pattern of behavior? Or are you disagreeing
Not at all.
with it?
You are intentionally vague when you're talking about like what constitutes a pattern. At what point does it start? So
it starts when you start.
No,
like if you start doing sexism, okay, doing it once or twice, okay. But and then you keep on doing it, and you do it now, and you do it every video, you do it every chance you get in every video. Would that be sexism?
So again, that's really begging the question. This is exactly like the other ones that you did, Bob. When you're saying somebody is doing this all the time and they're doing this every single video.
Yeah.
Like, yes. Okay, if they've done it 4 times, does that count? Is that now a sexist?
Because you're being purposely vague. It's 4 times. Listen, if they're doing it currently, sure, yes.
So I don't know what that means if they're doing it currently.
If they're doing it currently.
So like if they've done it,
how can it be any more clear?
So I mean, you could tell me at what point it actually becomes a pattern as opposed to like they've said 2 sexist things.
I mean, that's the thing. If they just say 2 sexist things, I probably won't think too much of it. But if they're doing it every single time, in every single video, over and over again, that's when
well, there you go, Bob. So we've just established that the threshold
that's
isn't
what I've
2.
been
so
what?
Yeah. So
no,
at what point does the
what?
threshold start? So you just said if they said 2 jokes, that's not a pattern.
Okay.
So if they say 3 jokes, is that a pattern? They do that sandwich joke 3 times or 3 variations on the sandwich joke.
I tell you
Are they
what,
now sexist?
If they did it, but they don't currently do it, then no. But if they're currently doing it and they do it every video, yes.
So if they do it every video,
yeah,
that seems intentionally vague, Bob. So
how is that vague? That
again,
is like every video.
Because you're saying if they do it every video. So I asked you if they do it 3 times, is that it? And you said, well, if they do it currently and they're doing it every video.
Dude, you
so
are
what does that mean? Does that mean
like you're really begging to like it's like I'm being as clear as possible and you seem like you really want to make it you're the one like dragging this into vagaries as much as possible. It's like, dude, they're just doing
how am I
every
dragging it
video.
into vagary? I'm literally trying to get as specific as possible. I feel like you saying, yeah, if they keep doing it repeatedly is as vague as it could be. If they do it every time is as vague as it could be. You're not getting into any specifics. I don't understand how that's making
every time they make a video, they do it.
Okay. And you're saying that they make a video how often? And they've done this how often?
Okay, so let's go to Gary Buechler. Let's go Nerdrotic. He makes fun of women every chance he gets in every video, with the exception as if they're doing traditional roles. Anytime they're doing
So,
something non-traditional, he makes fun of them every chance he gets.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with your framing of that. Again, I'm not familiar with his content, but
Well,
based
you
off
know
of
what?
your
We
Ryan
don't-
Cannell framing from
we don't
earlier.
have to put the neurotic thing.
That's why I was asking to go back to the Chrissy Mayer thing earlier, but you keep bringing it back to either Nerdrotic or Friday Night
because
Fights,
I'm more
and I don't know
familiar
why.
with them, and you keep on bringing it back to Chrissy Mayer, even though I bring up I don't know the exact number of jokes. I'm sure I could dig up some. I'm sure after this stream I could dig up tons if I really wanted to. I probably won't because I probably won't rest after this stream. But I mean, she's done plenty of associations. She hangs up with Gary Buechler of Nerdrotic a lot. But let's remove the name. No name. Just say YouTuber X. YouTuber X. Every time he makes a YouTube video, always finds a reason to make fun of women whenever they're doing a non-traditional
This is
role.
the exact same.
This
is the exact same example that you've been doing. It's begging the question though. You're saying every single time they do this. Yeah, if every single time somebody does something.
To that?
What do you mean? I've given you a clear answer. I've said it like 10 times. Yes, if every single time somebody does makes a video, they say something sexist or something racist, yeah, that seems like a pattern.
Okay.
I agree. You agree.
Okay.
But what we're trying to find out is what is that minimum threshold? At what point does it become a pattern as opposed to, hey, this is obviously a pattern?
But wait.
I'm trying to find out the beginning part, and you keep going to, hey, let's all go to something that we all agree is a pattern. Now, that seems intentionally vague to me, Bob. I keep asking you about the threshold, and you keep going to, okay, well, hypothetical, every single time they do this, they're always doing it.
Because every time I go into specifics,
let's use a different
you make it
hypothetical.
more vague. So I'm trying to go into hypotheticals. But listen, so you would agree, YouTuber X always does a sexism every chance he gets in his videos. You'd agree that's sexist, right?
Yeah, I would agree that if every time somebody makes a video, they say something sexist, that would be sexist.
Okay.
Yes, Bob, that is still begging the same question.
But now you're agreeing to that pattern without even knowing the number of times they've done it to reach that threshold.
You've literally said every single time they make a video, they are doing something sexist. I've asked you, what does that mean? How often are they doing this?
Mm-hmm.
So if they've made one video and there's one sexist joke, again, I would not say, hey, I have condemned you to be a bigot. Your hypothetical keeps saying they're doing it every single time.
Okay.
And in every video they're doing this. That seems to be begging the question that you're setting up a pattern. It is obviously a pattern.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out at what point it becomes a pattern.
So doing it every time is not enough. There has to be a specific number to hit for you. Like, what number would satisfy you?
So I'm not the one who's making the standard, Bob. So I keep asking you that, and instead of answering that, you keep doing hypotheticals where you're saying
keep on
every
seeing
single
it
time.
Every time.
So are you talking about Nerdrotic again? I don't understand.
I mean, Nerdrotic is the one that does the
what
sexist
you mean by
jokes
that.
every time he gets.
I know that's the one that you're talking about, and I don't know enough of his content to make a position on that. So I don't know. I can't tell you that I agree with that. I know from your framing of that Ryan Cannell clip, that wasn't what he was saying. So I would want to actually look at these.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're purposely, like, every time I make it as clear as possible, you just push for the vagaries. Like, what's the minimum threshold?
Can you explain? So you've made that accusation of me a couple different times. What part am I pushing to the vagaries, and how am I doing that?
Because when I say they do it every time, you agree, oh, they're doing it every time. That's a pattern. But what's the minimum threshold?
So that's you pushing towards the vagaries. I'm pushing towards the specific, which would be that threshold. I don't understand how you're calling that vague, Bob. I'm literally trying to get as specific as possible, and I feel like you are retreating from that every single time.
How is saying they do it every time vague?
You're literally begging the question. So you're saying, okay, they have a pattern of doing this. Is that a pattern? I'm asking you a specific question of what is the minimum for that threshold? And instead of answering that, you are answering the vagary. Well, if every time they do this, they're doing it in every video.
Because they do.
That is so much more vague than an actual answer to what is the minimum threshold. I don't understand how you're saying I'm pushing it to the vague when I'm asking for a specific, and you keep going to a grand thing that nobody would dispute is a pattern.
So you would agree these
guys... It appears to be the opposite of what you're saying.
So you would agree these guys are doing a pattern of bigotry then?
I'm agreeing with your hypothetical that you said if every single time somebody makes a video, every time they are being sexist, yes, that would be a pattern.
Okay.
For like the 10th time, I don't watch Nerdrotic. I don't watch Friday Night Tights. I can't condemn them. But based off of your hypothetical where you're giving me, yes, in every single video, they are doing this, transgression.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
of course, that would be a pattern of that. I'm trying to figure out at what point that starts. And I feel like you will not get specific with that.
Well, that's the thing.
You keep saying you
you've
can't
already,
do it, but it's your pattern of behavior that you're condemning people with.
But
Why
you've
can't you
already-
be specific with that? Do you know what your minimum threshold would be for this?
You agree when I tell you what they do every time. Okay, yeah, that is a pattern of bigotry. But
No,
you're
I don't agree. When
But you
you're
just said
hypothetical,
that.
when you said they are doing this, and every single video, like that is the only information you've given me in these hypotheticals. I agree with the hypothetical. Yes, and I'm explaining that's begging the question because you're literally baking in a pattern to this to say, is that a pattern? Of course it's a pattern, Bob. You're begging the question. What I'm asking of you is what is the minimum threshold for that?
What number do
And you will
want me
not
to
get
say?
specific with it. I'm not the one who has this standard to call someone a bigot.
I mean,
I want you to be honest with me and tell me what your minimum would be.
You've already agreed that by my standard, yes, they're doing a pattern of bigotry, but yet you keep on bringing it to this random. Bring me a number that sets the bar. What number do you want me to say? Seriously, what number are you looking for?
The number that satisfies you to say this is a pattern now, and I am okay with calling them a bigot. I'm not the one who has the standard, Bob. I'm wondering what your minimum for applying your standard
not
is.
enough. I have to have a specific number. Like I keep a checklist of number of times they do it.
I would say so, yeah. It seems very hyperbolic to say that somebody does something every time. Like you're saying, like in like one of Eric July's posts where he's just talking about ISOM. Like, okay, well that doesn't appear to be every time. Like I'm sure he has something that's somewhat innocuous, right? So I don't know what you mean by every time. And that's why I'm asking you to define it.
Okay, so Eric July occasionally does a ISOM video. Okay, cool. I'll give you that. That may not have bigotry in it. But let's say like 95% of his videos have bigotry in it. Would that be enough for you?
I mean, how many videos? So again, I'm not familiar with Eric July's content or anything like that. I just know he's somebody that you have called racist in the past. And I'm trying to find out, like, okay, you say they're always doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That seems somewhat hyperbolic. I'm sure there's some post that's just advertising like, hey, Friday Night Tights tonight or whatever, or here's a guest. I'm sure there's something that isn't necessarily something. I don't know. Maybe you guys could call it like a dog whistle or something, but I don't know. I don't think that every single I don't know. I can't believe that every single post would be racist or sexist or whatever.
They do largely do it. I mean, maybe you could pick out one random one where they do like an interview or something, but for the most part, okay. So let me go ahead and tell you. Definition of a pattern. To give regular or intelligent form to essentially, just doing it regularly is a pattern. There's no set number on here.
Okay. What does regularly mean to you? Yeah, but on there, they're not saying, hey, you should label somebody a racist based off of this nebulous pattern idea. You are the one who is doing that. Every time you've been asked to define racism, you say it's a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
So I'm asking you, what constitutes a pattern to you? Because you seem to be the one who has this as a standard for calling someone a bigot.
You seem to be the one that thinks it's important that we set numbers to these things. So what numbers do you think I should set?
I couldn't tell you. Again, I've told you the standard really seems like it has no utility to me. And based off of this, you could really call anyone some sort of bigot. I think it calls for more than just this nebulous pattern.
A nebulous pattern of every time. Or almost every time. 95% of the time.
What do you mean by every time?
I'll give you a couple
I don't
times
know what that means, Bob.
Video.
So what is?
So 90% of the time they do something bigoted.
So what does that mean, though, Bob? You're saying something intent. Hey, no, hold on 1 second. So what does that mean, Bob? You're saying 90% of the time they do this. Okay. how many videos do they have? Like, is it 90% as in like,
How many
I don't know,
videos
they have
would you
9
need them
videos
to have to qualify?
So I don't have this standard, Bob. So I don't know why I should have to define what your standard is.
A pattern,
I'm just telling you,
a pattern
I don't
is
see the
simply
utility
something
in the
done
standard.
regularly. That's it. It's something done regularly. You seem to be the ones saying patterns need to have specific numbers to them. So I'm trying to figure out what numbers you want.
So I never said that patterns need to have numbers to them. I think
that's
that
what
you
you're
need
saying
to be able
me.
to define what the minimum standard is for you calling somebody a
minimum
bigot.
standard is a number, dude.
Yeah, I think you should have that if you're saying that your way to actually call someone a bigot is this standard.
Why?
I think you should be able to define what that threshold is.
Why?
Because otherwise it's dishonest and everybody could be labeled that.
How?
If I can find 3 things in your past that I could call questionable, would it be okay for me to label you as, a bigot?
I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Yeah, I would think that's really dishonest.
That'd be a fucking weak argument.
I think so too, Bob. And that's my point with this pattern thing. I think it is a weak argument.
I have way more
I
than
think
3
you need to have
examples.
strong evidence. In your past?
No, on
Sorry,
the
3
past
examples.
guys I'm going over.
Sorry, I thought you were like making a confession or something there. I was like, Bob,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to go there. No, I just mean, I feel like if you're just going off of this pattern of behavior, you could find a few examples of something that could be questionable for anybody.
So a few random examples scattered throughout time I don't care about, but we're talking about something done regularly. A pattern is something done regularly. Would you agree to that?
Okay. Sure, I would say that that would be a definition of pattern. So then I would ask you, what does regularly mean to you?
There's no set number.
You're the one who has
what
this
set
as a
number do you
standard.
want? I just say it's done regularly.
So that seems intentionally vague. That could be twice, but he did it in like a frequency that you now call regular? That seems super dishonest.
Well, then that'd be a weak-ass argument, wouldn't it?
I agree. That's my entire point with this pattern of behavior. I feel like it is a weak-ass argument. I feel like if you had strong evidence, you would use the strong evidence. Literally, Dane says, like, with the pattern of behavior, any individual example can be explained away. That's why you need to not look at each individual example. You need to instead look at the pattern.
Yes.
That sounds like weak-ass argument. That sounds like a whole bunch of really weak evidence somehow adds up to a case where it doesn't.
Why?
You need to have strong argument for a strong case.
So why?
Because
is that?
justice matters.
So did you know? Do you know circumstantial evidence can be dismissed in a crime? You know that, right?
It can be under certain
Yeah, absolutely.
criteria, but I mean, like, you can also be convicted off of circumstantial evidence, Bob.
Yes, you can be.
It really depends on each individual case, and I'm a huge fan of justice, and I want justice to happen.
Then you can be convicted based on that circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, but it would have to not be weak evidence. It would have to be some sort of actual, at least, implication that circumstance actually, happened. Not just like, well, this guy has said MCU once. I don't know what he means by it, but the fact that he said it means that women are sexist.
But
so again, I don't know, but I mean, you've said.
Do you think
so? In that Sitch and Adam debate, you said if somebody says MCU, that would be evidence that they're sexist.
Yeah, well,
that to me seems like if they just say it once, that is enough for you to label them. So that doesn't seem like a pattern to me.
Evidence of being sexist doesn't necessarily make you sexist. It's just evidence that can be counted towards that. So saying it once, I won't really care.
Okay, and if it's a joke, would you care?
If it's a joke, like what's the joke? Again, we're talking.
Sorry,
about
it just lagged there. I thought maybe.
It's all in the context then.
Okay. So it's weird because you didn't seem to want to look into the additional context of that Ryan Cannell clip, but you condemned him as a racist because of how you cherry-picked that last half of his statement.
We went into the additional context. It still didn't change the context of the last half of the statement.
Okay. Well, I I really don't see how you're saying now you need additional context when you're literally taking it out in a lot of your examples for why somebody is racist or sexist. Like you mentioned before in that Sitch and Adam debate, if somebody even mentions MCU, to you they're sexist. In that Ryan Cannell clip, you kept leaving off the first half of what he said. It seems like you're not actually adding context to it.
Okay,
You're literally
we
just saying,
dude, I later, or you keep on saying that, but later on, we brought on the first half of the statement, and it didn't change anything. Like, do we just need to sit here and watch the whole damn video?
I don't think that would be beneficial.
No, I don't think so either.
Without having the first half of that, you're completely leaving out the fact about the moral character of, apparently
well, I mean,
white
you're
guys
big on
in
numbers.
the
How many moral white characters does the Batman need?
Again, it's not my argument, Bob. Like, I don't give a shit
right.
how many white characters are good or not. You said it's a weak argument,
so why are you defending it?
I'm literally saying that you didn't take the context of that argument. I'm not defending his argument.
Well, guess what? I've taken the context, and now it's the same argument.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree, I guess. I see additional context to the way that you were framing it.
Are you defending that argument?
So for like the 10th time, not defending it, just saying it's not the argument that you're laying forth.
I mean,
you're framing it in a dishonest way.
Describe the argument to me.
We went through this like 10 times.
Well, no,
we're totally looping on this.
Go ahead and tell me the argument.
So, again, I don't think there's any sort of utility in going through this. We're kind of at an impasse. We've looped on this like 10 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like you don't have a good way to break it down that doesn't sound racist.
So I'm supposed to defend an argument that I don't believe in when my entire point was, hey, you're not framing this accurately.
Well, frame it.
So now I'm supposed to take up his argument because you're not framing. Okay, he didn't say I'm taking points off of the score of this flick because Catwoman, Commissioner Gordon, and the mayor are black. That is the way you framed it. He said they have race swapped certain characters without adding the additional context where he said at the beginning of that statement, there are only 2 morally good white characters and have race swapped these other characters. Mm-hmm. There is a second half to that argument. Again, I don't think it's a great argument, but the way that you're framing it with it just, hey, there are these 3 black characters, so I'm taking the point off. That isn't accurate.
That is what he said, though. Because if those characters were white, he wouldn't have an argument then.
Okay, Bob. I don't know where we go from here with that particular point.
I mean,
we both disagree.
That's the meat and potatoes of his whole argument.
That is the cherry-picked end of his statement, that you will not go ahead and include the front half of that.
Do you think he would still take points off if those characters were white?
Probably, but I don't know anything about his...
What would his argument be?
I don't know. He seemed to be...
What would his argument be then? If those characters were white,
I don't
what would his
know.
argument be?
Like I said, I've seen probably like 10 minutes of his content in total. I really don't know what his argument would be. I don't think it would be honest for me to try and mind read him, but he seems to have some sort of problem with the morality of certain characters. And it seems like he would like more moral characters in Batman for some reason. I don't know. It always seemed kind of dark and there were a lot of criminals to me. So I don't know what morality is really supposed to be there.
He wants more moral white characters.
So he did mention that, which to me sounds very suspect, and that's why I wouldn't make that argument. My entire point with this is, what you said his argument is doesn't reflect what he actually said with his argument.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can tell you come from the Sitch and Adam school of debate where it's all the vagaries, just in the middle, don't actually take any points. Occasionally, just fight with the
Bob,
people on the left.
I am the only one who took a stance in this. I told you I feel like your method of determining whether somebody is a bigot or not has no utility. I would not use it.
So if somebody...
That is a stance. Nothing about that is vague. Every time that you have...
So if somebody regularly does bigoted behavior, would that be a bigot?
Bob, by definition, if somebody regularly does something bigoted, yes, they would be a bigot.
Yes,
that
we
is
agree.
asking. That is begging the question. Bob, we have agreed with that. You keep asking the same exact hypothetical. It's begging the question.
Because you keep on going back to it as if you don't understand what I'm saying, and then you do understand magically, and then you go back to not understanding what I'm saying. It's a really weird standard.
Books, records, films, these things matter. Call me shallow. It's the fucking truth.